Apocalyptic disaster. Rats as big as cars scamper around the city. People run in terror, but they're caught and eaten by the rat. Doomsday game activated. Just when people thought it was just mutated rat, but then the Doomsday game arrived. Plague, flood, drought, extreme heat, extreme cold, typhoons, earthquakes, one after another. I didn't die from the disasters, but was killed by the fake heiress's scheme. Reborn into a new life. Parental love? Forget it. True or false heiress. No one can stop me from stockpiling. When the apocalypse comes, I'll hold a cat in my left hand and a knife in my right, with my portable space. Through this disaster-ridden end times, I'll carve a bloody path. Time goes back to before the apocalypse. No. I jolt awake on the sofa. Looking at the familiar room, I touch my chest, still shaken. No stab wounds at all? All those disasters from my past life, was it just a dream? I quickly turn on the TV. The news anchor is delivering the news. On the 26th of November 2025, a citizen was cleaning their basement and found a giant rat. They immediately contacted pest control to catch it. Experts warn. The screen shows a rat as tall as a person, making my eyes widen in shock. I've been reborn. I've been reborn into the apocalypse 7 days before the doomsday begins. A phone notification sounds. It's a message from the real estate agent. Miss Yi, as promised, I have sold the house you entrusted to me. The sale price of $3.5 million, minus a commission of $50,000. The remaining $3.45 million has been transferred to your bank account. At the top of the phone screen, the account balance pops up. $3,450,082.58 notification. A bitter smile appears on my face. This hellish apocalypse. Why did I have to experience it again? In my past life, I accidentally got lost and was taken in by my adoptive parents. After they died in a car accident, they left me 2 properties and a bronze ring. Their only dying wish was for me to find my biological parents, so they could rest in peace. Later, I actually found my biological parents. At first, they were really good to me. Anything their adopted daughter Zhao Qianqian had, they would get one for me too. But this made Zhao Qianqian jealous. She sowed discord in front of my biological parents, stole my ring, and even secretly plotted to murder me cruelly. Remembering how before I died, Zhao Qianqian wore my ring and flaunted it smugly in front of me, the smug face of fresh food, my heart stirred. I wanted to test my hypothesis. I quickly grabbed the knife on the table, cut my finger, letting blood drip onto the ring's surface. This is actually a time-freezing storage space. No wonder 3 years into the apocalypse, Zhao Qianqian could still eat fresh food. Thinking about the upcoming rat plague, giant rats, bigger than humans, disease-carrying rodents, rampaging with terrifying burrowing abilities, plague, hunger, and the danger of being devoured by rats, are imminent. But luckily, with the space ring, it greatly increases my survival rate in this disaster. I decisively drove to a heavy steel structure engineering company. Please, I need you to refurbish this house. He especially hates rats, so the walls need to be grouted, seal the gaps, and preferably add a thick steel plate. We also need to consider ventilation and plumbing. It will take at least half a month. 5 days. I'll give you an extra $2 million. You have to finish it within 5 days. Under the influence of money, the boss still decided to take the order. Then pay a $500,000 deposit first. Seeing how urgent this is, I'll also replace the doors and windows for you. All high security grade, anti-drill, anti-pry, anti-impact, fireproof. I didn't hesitate at all, and decisively transferred the $500,000 deposit to the boss. As for the remaining payment, when the apocalypse comes, money will be worthless. It will be useless. Rats as big as cars running wild in the city. People ran in panic, but were caught and eaten by the rats. I didn't die in the catastrophe, but was set up and killed by the fake heiress. Time goes back to before the apocalypse. This time, not only can those terrifying rats not get in, people as disgusting as rats won't be getting in to bully me either. Without wasting any time, I rushed at full speed to the city's largest fruit and vegetable wholesale market. Over 30 types of vegetables, 500 GN each. Over 20 types of fruit, 300 GN each. Over 20 types of animal products, also 300 GN each. Not to mention rice, flour, salt, and oil. Even light soy sauce, oyster sauce, cooking wine. I placed large orders without hesitation. Young lady, why are you buying so many fruits and vegetables? If you can't eat them all, they'll go bad. My heart skipped a beat. It seems my massive shopping spree had raised suspicion after all. I quickly took out my phone to scan and pay. I casually made up an excuse. I'm a recent college graduate, starting my own business. I plan to sell pre-made meals. I'll store these ingredients in a cold storage. They won't spoil. The lady didn't press further. According to market policy, she gave me a 20% discount and arranged a truck to transport the goods to my home. late at night as I requested, looking at the 2.8 million yuan balance in my bank card. I couldn't help but sigh. Money really does flow like water. I stored all the supplies into my space. I lay wearily on the bed, feeling a sense of uncertainty about the future that I couldn't quite describe. But even so, I couldn't stop my shopping spree. I took out my phone and on the delivery platform, ordered another 2,000 cups of various flavored milk teas, 2,000 servings of fried chicken, burgers, and various other snacks. Just as I was indulging in a shopping spree, the phone suddenly rang. It was Zhao Qianqian. Sis, tomorrow is Mom's birthday party. There will be many relatives and friends coming to the house for the celebration. Remember to come home early. Don't stay out too late. Oh, and sis, when you come back, remember to buy groceries. Show everyone your cooking skills too. As soon as Zhao Qianqian finished speaking, I heard her mother, Zhao's mother, praising her for being thoughtful. Fine. I sneered coldly and hung up the phone. Good thing Zhao Qianqian called, otherwise I would have almost forgotten. I immediately opened the shopping app and without hesitation, cancelled my previous orders for the cake I had prepared for Zhao's mother's birthday, the flowers, and the Hermes bag from the boutique. Seeing the bank card show a deposit of 120,000 yuan, I lay back in bed, satisfied, and fell into a deep sleep. After years of apocalyptic disasters, I hadn't had such a peaceful sleep in a long time. The next day at dawn, I rushed out without stopping to start a new round of hoarding. Bath supplies, pots and pans, clothes and shoes. Referring to the checklist I found online, I stocked up several more big boxes of supplies. Meanwhile, the workers renovating the house also arrived at the site. I greeted them, brought out a case of drinks, and then spoke up. When you renovate the house, please set up an independent water and electricity system. Our boss is quite strict. He doesn't want anything to affect the water and power supply in this room. After it's installed, I'll give you an extra 200,000 for the labor. Rest assured, we've got it covered. Hearing my words, their eyes lit up. They immediately patted their chests and said, "It's as good as done." I led the workers upstairs. Just as I opened the door, I saw Zhao Qianqian and my biological parents staring right at me. "Sorry, sis, mom, dad, and I came to pick you up. We wanted to surprise you, but I didn't expect you'd be here with so many men. Sis, you really should take better care of yourself." She was insinuating, basically saying I have no self-respect, and my biological parents actually believed it. You ungrateful girl, bringing all these men home. What are you thinking? I think there's been a misunderstanding. But Zhao Qianqian, as if afraid the foreman would do something to her, screamed and hid behind Mr. and Mrs. Zhao. Seeing how they protected Zhao Qianqian, I was already numb inside. In my past life, when the people Zhao Qianqian hired stabbed me to death, my biological parents, just like today, shielded Zhao Qianqian behind them. They didn't even notice the smug smile on Zhao Qianqian's face. "Hello, is this 911? Yes. I'd like to report a trespassing. The address is, you're having your own parents arrested? Your adoptive parents, is that how they raised you? Good thing they died young. Or who knows what you'd have become. Come back with us now. I'm going to teach you a lesson." I shook his hand off fiercely and glared at the man before me. My adoptive parents were the best people in the world. When they found me, I was burning with fever in the snow. Even though the doctors said I wouldn't make it, they stubbornly spent all their savings just to give me a chance to live. "You don't have the right to talk about my adoptive parents. Captain Lee, I'm not close to these three. Could you please escort them out? Don't waste my time." Mr. and Mrs. Zhao wanted to say more, but Captain Lee of the construction team rolled up his sleeves and unceremoniously ushered them out. Zhao Qianqian, stuck outside the door, was a bit reluctant to let go. She had tricked Mr. and Mrs. Zhao into coming today because she knew that I had sold the house. She still wants to squeeze some money out of me. Dad, Mom, how could our sister do this to us? We're family, after all. And besides, today is Mom's birthday, of all days. Zhao's father tugged at the door handle. Finding it wouldn't open, he angrily kicked the door. "I'm done with this ungrateful daughter. From today onward, I, Zhao Jianping, only have Qianqian as my daughter." Zhao's mother was wiping away tears, but held Zhao Qianqian tight, not saying a word in objection. I couldn't care less about what they think, because I saw some of the things I ordered online, rat poison, hadn't been delivered yet. I was just wondering, when I got a call. "Hello, this is Kuainiao Station. We noticed that you ordered a large quantity of rat poison. The quantity is too large, we can't deliver it. Please come to our station to pick it up when you're free. Okay, I'll go there tomorrow. Forgot that couriers nowadays all like to leave packages at the station. Us working folks have to go get our own packages. What a pain. Early on the third day, I was woken up by non-stop message notifications. When I opened my phone, it was messages from Zhao Qianqian. Sister, you've never seen a high society banquet, have you? Why don't you buy some things? Apologize to mom and dad. Maybe they'll forgive you. Without any hesitation, I directly blocked and deleted Zhao Qianqian and casually left the group chat a loving family. I then reviewed my current preparations. I've stocked up on enough food. The house reinforcement is already underway. Of course, I also need to prepare some clothes, shoes, and socks. And on the way, I'll pick up the rat poison I ordered. I was driving down the road when suddenly I heard a commotion on the side of the road. A huge rat monster, a rat bigger than a car, directly bit through the rat-catching net and charged onto the road. Quick, 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 tranquilizer dart. A group of uniformed professionals quickly dispersed the crowd and at lightning speed shot a tranquilizer dart into the giant rat's body. Not only did the giant rat not get subdued, it went crazy instead, its eyes turning bloodshot, and charged straight at my car. A rat bigger than a car bites through the rat trap, rushes onto the road, and charges straight at my car. Almost instinctively, I grabbed the high-voltage stun baton by my side. 100,000 volts. Even if it can't kill it, it should at least temporarily incapacitate it. A gunshot rings out. The giant rat's gaping maw stops right in front of me, then crashes heavily to the ground. A strong stench of blood and filth wafts from its body. I cover my nose, my face slightly pale. Are you okay? You alright? The man puts away the tranquilizer gun and looks at me with concern. I shake my head to indicate I'm fine. I just didn't expect that this apocalypse had already begun so quietly. Looks like I need to speed up. Xiaowang, Lu, please take care of this rat. Coming, Captain Zhou. Such a huge rat, who knows where it came from. They're all over the country. The man calls over two people with his walkie-talkie. Both are wearing thick protective suits. Lu, the older one, waves at the man, looks at the rat's corpse, and fans his nose in disgust. Watching them clean up carefully, I remember the rat disaster from my past life. All the officials mobilized immediately. They all thought there was only one nest of rats, which might have mutated, but they never expected the rat tide would last for 3 whole months. Experts estimated at least 10 billion big rats were rampaging across the globe. By the last month, the rats had even developed intelligence, from initially using conventional weapons to control them, to later having to use artillery shells to bomb the rat swarms, until they completely lost control. It was also these people who rushed to the front. Such big rats, could they spread viruses? Don't worry, we'll find the nest as soon as possible, and exterminate these mutant rats. Hearing me say this, Zhou Hao's expression turned serious, but he still tried to reassure me. I didn't say anything more. After all, I didn't want to be taken as a freak for research by scientists when the apocalypse came. Got in the car, I took out my phone, and located the clothing market. Excluding the expenses of these past few days, my bank card balance was still 2,430,012.86 yuan. To deal with various disasters, I went to the mall and bought a large number of ordinary clothes, pants, shoes, and socks, including high-temperature resistant, corrosion-proof, and mosquito bite-resistant ones. I also prepared 50 sets of each. Besides that, gas masks, full-wrap goggles, combat boots, and other special equipment. I also bought 100 sets of each. After all that spending, I still had 1.8 million yuan left on my phone. Sis, why are you here? Just as I was worrying about how to buy medicine, a familiar voice reached my ears. Zhao Qianqian walked towards me, followed by my biological mother. Plague, flood, drought, extreme heat, extreme cold, typhoons and earthquakes, endless disasters. I didn't die from the natural disasters, but was killed by the fake daughter's scheme. Time goes back to before the apocalypse. Zhao's mother, who had been all smiles, the moment she saw me, her face instantly turned cold. I no longer cared whether they liked me or not. I turned to leave, but Zhao Qianqian reached out and stopped me. Sister, don't be mad at mom and dad anymore. Look, mom specially brought me to the mall today just to pick out a decent piece of jewelry for you. As she spoke, she took out a gift box. Inside was a ring. The face of the ring was a 1-carat diamond. So, do you like it? Mom and I picked it out together for you. No need. I don't like jewelry. My eyes fell on Zhao Qianqian's neck. A necklace studded with diamonds. The pendant was a thumb-sized sapphire. The sparkle was almost blinding. When a natural disaster really strikes, these jewels are the most useless things. Failing to see the angry and jealous expression on my face, Zhao Qianqian was clearly not willing to give up. Ah. Sister, "This ring, isn't it prettier than the one on your hand? Hurry up and take it off and put on the new ring Mom bought you." As she said that, Zhao Qianqian rushed over and tried to pull the ring off my hand. I jerked my hand away sharply. Zhao Qianqian was like a kite with a broken string, flying straight out and landing hard on the ground. Almost instinctively, my biological mother slapped me right across the face. Her hand trembled slightly. My cheek stung with a burning pain. Your sister meant well, you ungrateful beast. Apologize to your sister now." Seeing Zhao's mother defend Zhao Qianqian like that, I lowered my eyes and let out a soft laugh. "Meant well? In that case, rather than the diamond ring, I'd still prefer this necklace." I walked up to Zhao Qianqian, crouched down, and looked down at her from above. Having said that, I directly yanked the sapphire necklace off Zhao Qianqian's neck. Zhao Qianqian covered her neck and let out an instinctive scream. The necklace in my hand shimmered brilliantly. I couldn't help but whistle in admiration. Giving your own daughter a $3,000 diamond ring and your adopted daughter a $3 million sapphire necklace? Zhao's mother's face turned sour. What she didn't expect was I left the necklace on the counter beside me without taking it. Zhao Qianqian stole 20 years of my life. This necklace is compensation for what she did, and a slap and a necklace are how I repay you for the pain of carrying me for 10 months. From now on, I cut ties with you. I never want to see you again. That little episode with Mother Zhao and Zhao Qianqian has no effect on me. Instead, after arriving at the courier station, the courier looked at me with full suspicion, which gave me a headache. "Bro, I really am not going to kill myself." Behind the courier, my 10 full boxes of rodent and insect repellent spray were neatly stacked. He shook his head. "If you can't state the purpose, it'll be treated as suicide or poisoning. I'll call the police right now." Dude, I wouldn't buy so many pest sprays just to kill myself and eat them. I'm opening a restaurant, so I need to prepare some. Hearing this, he gave me a skeptical look, pulled out a piece of paper, a liability waiver. He tapped the signature line with his pen and turned around to sort other packages. I don't know what the higher-ups are thinking. Drug approval suddenly got much stricter. That's when I remembered something I had been forgetting. When the apocalypse comes, something even scarcer than food medicine. Right after the disaster began, giant rats carried massive amounts of viruses. Anyone bitten by a giant rat or who ate food contaminated by rats would either die or be crippled, let alone waiting for the next disaster. 1 month after the giant rat plague started, medicine was already completely scarce. There were even cases of 10 portions of food for 1 pill. But unfortunately, the government's control over medicine is extremely strict. Now I want to stockpile medicine in bulk. It's impossible. I returned home with a heavy heart. The construction crew had left. To my surprise, they not only completed the independent water and electricity supply system, but also installed steel plates on the walls. The whole house looked like it had been renovated, brand new. I lay on the sofa, aimlessly browsing pharmacies on my phone. Every medicine has purchase limits, completely unable to meet my needs. I sighed softly. Suddenly, there was a rapid knocking on the door. "Hello, I'm your neighbor from next door. Sorry to bother you." I turned on my TV, and there were 16 surveillance feeds on it. In the footage, a man was holding a child in his arms, standing outside the door with a panicked look on his face. It was the team leader from the pest control earlier today, Zhou Hao. Small world. That guy I ran into during the day turns out to be my new neighbor. I opened the door, looked down at the little girl in his arms. She looked about 3 or 4 years old. Her little face was flushed red with fever, her mouth slightly open, breathing rapidly, and there were tear stains at the corners of her eyes. She looked really bad. "What's wrong?" "It's you." "Thank goodness. I know this is a lot to ask, but could I borrow your car? My car suddenly broke down, and I can't get to the hospital." I frowned. Having experienced the horrors of human nature in my past life, I knew I wasn't the helpful type, but I just happened to need to buy some medicine, so going to the hospital with them might work. So I nodded, grabbed my car keys from the hook by the door. "You take care of the kid. I'll drive." On the way to the hospital, I noticed large red patches on the girl's arm. Those familiar symptoms made me nervous. "Your daughter." Hearing that, the big guy lowered his eyes red, his voice full of guilt. "My little sister has had dust allergies since she was a kid. It's my fault. I've been busy with work, and haven't had time to clean the house. There must be pollen or dust mites at home." Hearing that, I breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness it wasn't because she'd been exposed to the virus carried by the giant rats. Otherwise, the poor kid would have suffered. In the hospital room, the doctor wrote a diagnosis of pollen allergy and gave Zhou Hao instructions. I casually asked the nurse at the door about drug procurement. The nurse didn't suspect anything, and told me that in the south of the city, there's a large pharmaceutical factory, which has a pretty comprehensive supply of medicine. After getting the exact location, I turned around, ready to say goodbye to Zhou Hao in the room, and leave first. But then I saw him take a call, and then he rushed over to me. There have been massive giant rat attacks in the city. I have to go deal with it now. Could you please watch my little sister? Thanks. He stuffed the wallet into my hand. I tried to call him back, but all I could see was a figure walking away. I frowned, feeling uneasy. In my previous life, the massive rat attacks happened 2 days before the apocalypse. Now it's come 2 days early. Thinking the apocalypse might also come early, I wanted to leave immediately and buy all the supplies I hadn't managed to get. But since his brother saved me once, and he serves the people, I shouldn't let the terrible human nature from before turn me into a monster too. With that thought, I sat by the little girl's bed, took the medicine from the doctor, and gently applied it with a cotton swab to her allergic rash. Brother, don't leave Xiaomin alone at home. The little girl slowly woke up, saw the ointment in my hand, and gave a sweet smile. Are you the fairy sister? Sorry for troubling you. I guess her brother often goes on missions, so waking up to a stranger is something Xiaomin is used to. Your brother went on a mission. I'm your neighbor. He asked me to take care of you. Xiaomin nodded obediently. She didn't cry or fuss, didn't even complain of pain. It broke my heart to see her so mature. Faced with such a well-behaved child, I couldn't just ignore her. I reached out and patted her head. The fever's gone. Are you hungry? I'll go get you some porridge. I'll get you some porridge. I stood up, just opened the door, and saw wave after wave of patients lying on gurneys, being rushed into the hospital. They had blood on them, large red rashes. Their pained faces were terrifying. The medical staff transporting them all wore hazmat suits. I knew we couldn't stay in the hospital. I turned and picked up Xiaomin. She looked at me, confused. What's wrong, big sister? I helped him put on his mask, fastened his clothes, and hurried to the nurse's station. Most of the nurses had already gone to handle emergencies. Only one nurse was left there to take orders. It was too noisy here for a child to rest. When the kid's brother arrives, please tell him that I'm waiting for him at home with my little sister. My tone was too familiar for a nurse. He was kind enough to remind me the entrance was chaotic. A large number of patients were being sent to the hospital. He suggested I leave through the back door. Zhou Hao lived across from us. There were 2 other households on this floor. I looked at the little girl in my arms. She was still in bad shape. She was all listless, looking really drained. Xiaomin, your brother isn't home. How about taking a rest at my place? He looked at me timidly, then nodded. I didn't bring my keys. I didn't go home. Sorry for the trouble. I reached out and ruffled her hair, then carried her into the house. Good thing I stashed all the supplies I bought these days into my space immediately. Only some simple food was left in the kitchen. I was hungry too. Anyway, I quickly prepared 2 dishes and a soup. Steamed egg with crystal shrimp, chicken broth asparagus with mushrooms, and winter melon meatball mushroom soup. Considering Xiaomin's condition, all were light in flavor. Wow, mushrooms, eggs, and my favorite shrimp. Sister, you're amazing. Though Xiaomin was only 4, she was very easy to take care of. She could finish her meal by herself. After dinner, it was already 9 in the evening. I put Xiaomin to bed in the room and started planning my medicine shopping list. Basic common anti-inflammatories, cold medicine, painkillers, fever reducers, etc. Also bandages, iodine, tourniquets for external injuries, plus some auxiliary items like thermometers, blood pressure monitors, medical gloves, and so on. Oh, I quickly gathered all the electronics at home. Anime, movies, TV series, novels, offline games, everything. I carefully selected them all. After all, once the rat plague hits, let alone water pipes and wires, even the internet cables will all be cut off. I don't want to live a second life, only eating and sleeping. When Zhou Hao found my place, it was 5 in the morning the next day. The sky was just turning light. He reeked of disinfectant. He was sweaty and feverish. Standing at the door, it was clear he had disinfected himself before coming. Sorry to disturb your rest. I got called out on a mission yesterday. That's why I brought you breakfast. I didn't know what you like, so I bought a bit of everything, including some millet. He hasn't been causing trouble for you, has he? After Zhou Hao left with the little one, I lost all desire to sleep. Thinking about what I saw in the hospital yesterday, I immediately got up and headed to the pharmaceutical factory the nurse mentioned. It wasn't as complicated as I thought. I simply registered my ID info and the purpose of the medicine and directly got a pickup slip. It was surprisingly smooth, but soon the reason for this strange phenomenon became clear. I drove the rental truck to the warehouse gate and saw at least 5 or 6 trucks of various sizes parked there. Box after box of medicine was being loaded onto trucks. The drivers were sitting on the curb. Some said they were from community procurement. Some said they were from the health commission. Others said they were from the People's Hospital. It seems there have been many giant rat sightings. The relevant departments had made preparations in advance. Unfortunately, this rat disaster was far worse than they imagined. When the apocalypse comes, an overwhelming tide of rats will flood in like a tsunami. That will be a true hell on earth. Just as I suspected, the apocalypse came early. The apocalypse. Instant start. Global disaster. Rat disaster duration. 6 months. A mechanical voice sounded in everyone's ears. Even those who were deaf or hard of hearing heard it. Confusion, excitement, panic. A mix of emotions. All the chat groups I was interrupted into heated discussions. Is it true? I can't believe I'm actually living through a survival apocalypse from a novel. Looks like it's my turn to be the hero and save the world. What? A rat disaster? Is that referring to those terrifying giant rats in the news recently? My cousin was bitten by a giant rat 2 days ago. Viral infection. She was pronounced dead this morning. 6 months of this rat infestation? Oh my god. Someone in the group posted photos of malls, convenience stores, and markets. All supplies have been bought out. Only a few cardboard boxes were scattered on the ground. I live on the top floor with a wide view. Soon I heard screams coming from the neighborhood. 2 or 3 giant rats crawled out of a manhole in the neighborhood. With their mouths wide open, they charged at the crowd. They bite anyone they see, and they run fast. They only stop for a moment when eating. Hey everyone, I was bitten by a giant rat while shopping. Can anyone drive me to the hospital? I'd be willing to pay $10,000 for a ride. I looked at my phone. A person noted as Building 3, Room 604, sent a distress message in the group chat and posted a photo of Xiao B injured. Oh my god, these giant rats actually eat people. Bro, are you okay? I just checked the garage. There are several rats in the garage. Who knows on the way to send you to the hospital if we'd get attacked by rats. I'm not going. The rat plague has just begun, and the coldness between people is already showing. Even though the virus on the giant rat's teeth isn't contagious, the mortality rate is as high as 90%. In the past life, it was also an apocalyptic disaster. 1 month after it started, the government finally developed a vaccine. It wasn't until summer vacation ended that the mortality rate barely dropped to 60%. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a message notification. Although it showed an invitation from my biological father, I knew very well that the one who really wanted to invite me was Zhao Qianqian. What trick is she up to now? Humph. I stayed silent. I wanted to see what drama Zhao Qianqian would stir up. Then I saw her post a photo in the group chat. It was a photo of dozens of security guards gathering in the villa. Sis, did you hear that sound yesterday? Why don't you apologize to mom and dad and come home quickly? The security at home is really good. It can definitely keep you safe. As if to make me feel grateful, my biological father sent a condescending message. Look how sensible your sister is. When you come back, remember to bring your sister some food. Thinking back to my past life, when I saw this message, I thought my parents were worried about me and went running back eagerly, but ended up being manipulated by them. After the water and electricity were cut off, I became their maid, serving tea, pouring water, doing laundry, cooking. I served the whole family and still got no appreciation. Thinking of this, I firmly replied with a message. I've never seen such a shameless beggar. Then I instantly left the group and blocked the whole family while I was at it. Day 2 after the apocalypse began, I was using a crab-eating set, enjoying delicious Yangcheng Lake hairy crabs, while watching the news about giant rats. Giant rats, omnivores that attack humans, carrying non-contagious but highly lethal bacteria, and they dig into homes. They're harmless if fed. Giant rats are everywhere, estimated at 20 million. 20 million. I frowned. In my memory, when the rat plague started in my past life, the news estimated the global giant rat population at 10 million. After rebirth, why did it double? I couldn't figure out where the difference came from. The doorbell interrupted my thoughts. Through the monitor, I saw the little girl next door holding a doll, standing pitifully outside. I was worried rats might climb up and hurt her. I quickly opened the door and pulled the little one inside. Now there are giant rats that eat people everywhere. Min, why are you out alone? Where's your brother? Brother went to kill the giant rats, so I won't be scared if the power goes out. The little girl was trembling, tears welling up in her eyes. I quickly walked to the window, pulled back the blackout curtain and looked down. Sure enough, the whole neighborhood had a blackout. The rats must have chewed through the main power line. Good thing I installed an independent water and power system, or I'd be like everyone else, listening to the terrifying squeaks in the dark. Min, do you remember your brother's number? You're at my place, so we need to let him know, so he won't worry. I used my phone watch to call the contact labeled brother, but no one answered, so I sent a text message. I'm from 1602. Your sister is at my place. After sending the message, I looked up and saw Min watching TV intently. A cartoon was playing. I took out my phone and opened the neighborhood group chat. The group was arguing fiercely. How about we each offer some food, feed the rats until they're full, then kill them? We're highly intelligent beings. Are we afraid of these beasts? Feed them full? You know how much food that takes? Better just stay home and wait for the government to send pest control. I remember that apocalypse notice said something about 6 months. I wonder if there'll be rewards after it ends. They really think this is the apocalypse, expecting apocalypse gift packs and dungeon rewards. These people are ridiculously naive. I shook my head helplessly. Then I turned off my phone screen and stopped looking at those pointless discussions. Sis, this cartoon is really good. Can I watch a bit longer? Min suddenly turned her head, her eyes sparkling as she looked at me. I nodded and casually turned up the TV volume a bit. Okay, but not too long. Watching too much is bad for your eyes. Got it. She obediently replied and continued staring at the screen. At that moment, a rustling sound suddenly came from outside the window. It sounded like something was crawling back and forth. I walked to the window, carefully lifted a corner of the curtain, saw several huge rats climbing up the wall. Their movements were agile and swift. They could even easily slip through the gaps in the security grills. Ordinary defenses were useless. It seemed that ordinary protective measures were completely ineffective. But luckily, I was on the top floor. Maybe the rats were too hungry. Many turned back halfway because they got tired and went elsewhere to find food. I withdrew my gaze, turned around to check the security of the house. The doors and windows were all reinforced with special metal plates. The water and electricity supply systems were running normally. For now, no need to worry about being affected by the chaos outside. But you never know. I still need to replenish the food supplies as soon as possible, especially fresh ingredients. Wait. In a little while, there probably won't be any fresh food left to eat. Min, are you hungry? The little girl shook her head. Her attention was completely focused on the TV. She hadn't noticed the danger outside approaching at all. I took some snacks from the kitchen and placed them on the coffee table, then turned on the computer and started organizing the plans for the next steps. Since the apocalyptic disaster started early, then many things would change accordingly, including the scale of the rat plague, human response, and so on. I need to prepare defenses in advance. What if the rats actually break into my home? Just then, the smartwatch vibrated. It was a message from Zhou Hao. Thanks, I'll come back as soon as I finish my mission here. Just a short sentence, without any superfluous emotional expression, yet I felt a sense of calm and reliability from it. I hope you return safely, I muttered to myself, then closed the message interface. That night, Zhou Hao did not return. I used Min's smartwatch to call him. No one answered on the other end. This made me start to feel a bit scared. I unconsciously looked at Min, who was already fast asleep. I gently tucked her in. I got up again to check the doors and windows, made sure they were all locked tight, although it was safe for now, but who knew when those giant rats would find a new way in. Thinking about that, I gathered everything in the house that could be used as a weapon and brought it to the living room, including a couple of baseball bats, a folding knife, and some pots and pans from the kitchen. Worried Min would be scared if she saw them. I hid them under the sofa and in some hidden corners. But clearly, these wouldn't last long. I had to find more effective defenses quickly. Suddenly, Zhou Hao's pistol came to mind. If only I had a pistol. It wasn't until dawn that Zhou Hao replied, I'm so sorry. I might not be able to come back for now. I have to be on standby. The death toll is rising. The higher-ups gave a strict order. Could you take care of Min for now? When this is all over, I'll thank you properly. Looking at Zhou Hao's reply, I was stunned. It won't be over. At least not until I die. If I told him about the soaring death toll, It would be like telling him that this is a plan by God to wipe out humanity. Hesitating, I still replied, "Okay, stay safe, come back safely." Early in the morning, I made breakfast for Minmin, poured her a glass of milk. I made myself a cup of coffee, just 2 slices of toast and a fried egg, and some pork and mushroom buns, plus a large bowl of century egg and lean meat congee. Minmin ate happily. She tilted her head up to look at me, pouted and mumbled, "Sister, when will my brother come to get me?" "Is your brother a big shot? He has work to handle. Isn't it nice having sister with you? Sister has lots of yummy food at home." Minmin was a bit upset at first, but immediately broke into a smile when she heard me. Okay, Minmin loves sister the most. Kids are easy to cheer up. I scrolled through Minmin's phone watch. After that message last night, Zhou Hao never sent anything else. I proactively replied with safe, and he instantly replied with safe too. I felt relieved. Just then, the TV suddenly broadcast, "Attention all citizens. We now issue a red alert. The Health Commission study shows rats carry a large number of unknown viruses. The viruses are still being analyzed, no results yet, but they could mutate. Citizens, please do not kill rats privately or bring their bodies home to eat. Please lock your doors and windows and stay indoors." At that moment, the TV kept broadcasting this message. Suddenly, the steamed bun in my hand didn't taste so good. Do people actually eat rats? Probably didn't stock up in time. "Sis, can you eat rats?" Mian Mian looked at me curiously, completely unaware of the warning's meaning. I quickly changed the TV channel to cartoons. Sis didn't understand. "Just watch cartoons. Today, Sis allows you to watch a little longer." "Really?" Minmin immediately ran to the TV with her bun, asking me to change the channel. I took out my phone and looked at various group messages. I found many people didn't stock up in time and were now out looking for food. Someone on site sent a video. Giant rats were already everywhere in the neighborhood. If you can think of a place, they can get there. The neighborhood surveillance system was completely down. Someone risked going to the underground garage to find the property office, hoping they could provide some food and emergency supplies. But when they got to the office, they found rats gnawing on their bodies. That person immediately grabbed a cleaver and killed the rat. The rat was cut in half. Blood sprayed all over their face. The person filming was so scared their phone shook. Then a woman's voice came from the video. "Honey, this rat has germs. You got its blood on you. You'll get the virus." Don't listen to their nonsense. The government is just afraid we'll leave home and go looting, so they made that up. Besides, there are so many unlucky people out there. Why would it be me? Stop being alarmist. Hurry up and find supplies. Stop filming. Let's go. The video ends. I couldn't help but feel speechless. No matter the time, there are always these smartasses charging forward on the road to death. The government said rats carry unknown viruses, and he still doesn't believe it. I kept scrolling through the group messages. More and more people were leaving home. I remembered something and looked over at Minmin. She was still absorbed in the TV. "Minmin, if you're hungry, tell sis." Well, she's clearly not affected by the outside world. That's good. I turned off my phone and walked to the window. I double-checked that the protective measures were in place. Although the top floor is relatively safe, rats' climbing ability is beyond imagination. I must not let my guard down. I tiptoed to look outside the neighborhood. All I saw was a sea of black, quickly crawling toward every building. I shook my head helplessly and quickly closed the curtains. Just then, a loud banging on the door came. "It's my brother. He's back." He was about to run and open the door, but I rushed over and hugged him and covered his mouth. I checked my phone watch. Zhou Hao hadn't messaged me about coming back, so it might not be him at the door. I muted the TV, told Minmin to hide in the back room, opened the monitor, and watched outside. It was a stranger standing in the hallway. Sure enough, not Zhou Hao. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at him closely and noticed his clothes were covered in blood. He held a plastic bag with some food inside. After looking around, he suddenly pounded on my door. His raised hand covered in red blood blisters, some even burst. I gasped and covered my mouth. What happened to him? "Anyone there? Please open up. I have food to share with you. I want to trade for some alcohol and medicine. If you don't have any, it's fine. Anything will do." I frowned, my heart softening. You can't survive the apocalypse that way. You'll be devoured by your own kind. If he's infected with the virus, then he's probably beyond saving. Realizing this quickly, I didn't respond, but gripped my folding knife tightly. It's unlikely, but if he does break in, I have to be ready to fight. A few seconds later, the man stopped knocking and spoke in a desperate tone. "I know someone's inside. Please help me. There are monsters everywhere outside. I don't care if I die, but my daughter is only 3, and she was bitten by a rat too. You don't need to save me, just save my daughter." His voice grew hoarse, even tearful. Hearing about a 3-year-old child, my heart clenched. But in the end I chose to stay silent. Seeing no response, the man pressed his ear to my door and listened. After a moment, his expression changed, and he kicked my door hard. He cursed, "Damn it, no one's home again. How many doors have I knocked on? Is there really nobody home?" I shuddered. Turns out the guy was faking it all along. He looked at the back of his hand, then glared at the peephole. "If I find out you're home, I'll make you pay." With that, he turned and left the stairwell. The fire door slammed shut with a bang. Seeing that, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Just then, a group message came in. I looked at my phone and found that many other residents had the same experience. Someone deliberately used children and pregnant women as excuses to trick them into opening the door. Some people got tricked and were cleaned out, and then started using the same method to trick others. I collapsed on the sofa, gasping for air. That was close. I almost gave in. Just then, Min quietly cracked open her bedroom door, her big eyes blinking at me. She whispered, "Sis?" I quickly waved for her to come out. Min, listen to your sister. Something really dangerous is happening outside. There are rats everywhere. Don't open the door for anyone. Got it? Min looked at me, thought for a moment, and said, "So I shouldn't open the door for brother either?" I shook my head. I held up the phone watch. "Your brother says he's on standby." Standby means he won't be back for now. If he does come back, he'll tell me. Then, once we're sure it's brother at the door, we'll open the door. Let brother in, okay? Min immediately broke into a smile and gave me a big nod. She said okay, and sat back down beside me, watching the cartoon that hadn't finished yet. But this time, she seemed to realize something. She turned down the TV volume on her own. Looking at her, I felt a mix of emotions. She's still so young. She can't understand any of what's happening. Maybe to her, this disaster is just a short adventure. But for me, it's a second chance. To avoid more accidents, I checked all the entrances again carefully and tried to contact Zhou Hao. But no matter how many messages I sent, he never replied. That made me even more uneasy. If something happened to Zhou Hao, what would happen to Min? The light outside the window gradually dimmed. Min, and I plan to have hot pot tonight. I took out the hot pot balls, lamb rolls, beef rolls, sliced potatoes, and lettuce I bought earlier. The table was full. I opened a cola for her, and a beer, and some peanuts for myself. We watched the news on TV, while enjoying the hearty dinner. The channels still running on TV were gradually decreasing. I figured the rats had already stormed the TV stations. Now, the only sources of outside news were the internet and the military channel. Some brave streamers were wandering outside, constantly posting updates to get views. I shook my head, amazed at their ignorance. I don't want to watch anymore. I just switched the TV to a cartoon. Min was really into it, excited. I took a sip of beer. I looked at my smartwatch. Zhou Hao just sent a message. "How are you guys?" I quickly replied, "All safe. What about you?" Zhou Hao replied quickly too. "The streets are full of rats now. Can't kill them all. Can't find where their nest is. Don't go outside." I let out a deep sigh. I wanted to tell him there was no such thing as a rat nest, but I was afraid of crushing their hopes and all their hard work, so I swallowed those words. In the end, it's better to say something reassuring. "You must stay safe. Min is doing fine with me. I'll protect her. Thank you so much. Around 3 in the morning tomorrow, I might come back to bring you some food. Your neighborhood is already in chaos. Don't come out." Zhou Hao sent me a praying hands emoji. I thought about it and replied with okay. Now she's the only one I can trust. After all, his sister is with me. She wouldn't dare lie to me. But you never know. What if she's just trying to earn my trust and then take my house? Better be cautious. I checked the weapons hidden under the sofa and glanced at the knives in the kitchen, silently rearranged them, and hid them in a more concealed but easily reachable spot. If Zhou Hao really comes back, I need to make sure I have enough time to defend myself. At that moment, a creepy hissing sound came from outside the window. The sound seemed to come from the gaps in the walls, with some eerie rhythm. Sends chills down your spine. I quietly walked over to the window, peeking through a crack in the curtain. I saw rats had crawled up to my floor's balcony. Their bellies looked swollen. They must have eaten their fill. I could also hear sharp squeals from downstairs. I opened my phone, and the group chat was blowing up. A lot of residents were fighting rats in their homes. No one even knows where the rats came from. The situation was worse than I imagined. Someone claimed to have found a pattern in the rats' activity, saying they seem particularly sensitive to some smell. Another person shared a homemade poison recipe, but someone immediately called it out in the comments, pointing out that it might attract even more rats. The screen flooded with all sorts of unverified info, sparking a heated debate. Just then, Zhao Qianqian sent me a friend request from a burner account. I scrolled through her moments casually. For days now, Zhao Qianqian had been posting bragging messages, and she kept calling me out. But I noticed her photos were getting more and more monotonous. The food on the table was down to some frozen meat, not a single vegetable in sight. Thinking about the timing, their food supply must be almost gone by now. Even at a time like this, she still puts on airs as the fake heiress. How ridiculous. I opened her video account and found she started selling bags on some platform. A limited edition bag worth $30,000 for 10 pounds of vegetables. But no one was biting. I couldn't help but snicker. Just as I was about to exit, Zhao Qianqian sent me another friend request, with a message attached. Yi Nanan, are you dead? If not, reply. Mom and Dad are worried about you. Where are you? Still at your own place? Got any food? If you do, bring some over for Mom and Dad. Mom is sick and can't get medicine. Come back soon. Seeing her message, I deleted it without a second thought. If it were before, I might have softened, but having been reborn once, I'm an orphan now. Since my biological parents only care about that adopted daughter, they might as well consider me dead. Just then, my smartwatch buzzed. It's a message from Zhou Hao, Comrade Wei Jianwei. The rat virus might mutate. They said it wasn't contagious before, but it's mutated. We just sent a corpse for testing. The report says the virus has undergone a secondary split. People bitten could become extremely contagious, and there's no cure right now. After reading this message, my heart sank. Secondary split. I remember in my previous life, this didn't exist. It should have had a vaccine, right? That means things outside are going to get even messier. Soon, Zhou Hao sent a second message. But the virus has an incubation period. You can't tell during the incubation period. It takes about 3 to 7 days to complete the split and mutation. The bite area will develop large shingles-like rashes. Severe cases may involve pus and decay. As long as you come into contact with pus or blood, you'll be directly infected. I thought of the man who knocked earlier. I quickly told Zhou Hao, don't risk coming back tomorrow. I have food at home. Mingming and I are safe. There should already be many infected in the neighborhood. Don't come back. After a long pause, Zhou Hao sent another message. Do you have a lot of food? It's been so many days. You must have eaten most of it, right? I replied, before the rat plague broke out, I was planning to start my own business making pre-made meals. So I bought a lot of ready-to-eat food and quite a few vegetables. Just blanch them in hot water. They're still good to eat. Don't worry about us. Zhou Hao sent a folded hands emoji again. That's good. Let's stay in touch. There might be a special operation tonight. Don't worry. I replied, okay. After that, no more messages came from him. I closed the phone watch. I let out a deep sigh. On one hand, I really was worried that Zhou Hao would be in danger if he came back. On the other hand, I was a bit afraid that Zhou Hao might have ulterior motives. But what did he mean by special operation? Is the government going to take some special measures? Just 1 hour later, suddenly, there was a deafening explosion. The shockwave rattled the windows. Even the cups on the coffee table shook. I instinctively ran into the bedroom. Taking advantage that Minmin hadn't woken up, I grabbed a headset and put it on him. I played soft music on my phone. Seeing that he wasn't startled, I breathed a sigh of relief. What is this? But right after the explosion, the outside fell into dead silence again. I held Minmin's little hand tightly, silently praying in my heart that all of this would end soon. By noon the next day, a news channel reported that last night's explosion was an experiment on the rats in the city. They are now using all means to eliminate the rats, finding their nests and wiping them out in one go. They told the public not to panic. Seeing this message, the group chat exploded with discussions. Everyone was expressing all kinds of hopes. Only I knew that no matter what method they used, it was impossible to eliminate all the rats. But at least it could buy some time. Zhou Hao and his group have heavy weapons protection, so he should be the safest one. That puts my mind at ease. Sister, this lettuce is really good. I want more. Okay, I'll stir-fry another plate for you. I opened the fridge. I touched the ring on my finger, and another lettuce appeared instantly. I took it out and stir-fried it with meat slices. The fresh scent of lettuce soon filled the kitchen. I brought the dish to the table. Minmin couldn't wait and picked up his chopsticks, put a piece in his mouth, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. Just then, the phone rang. It was a private message from someone in the group. You still have food, right? We're willing to trade weapons for it. That one sentence put me on alert. How did this person know I have food at home? They smelled it? Impossible. I realized it must be a bluff. I just closed the chat window and decided to play dead. At the same time, I opened the group chat to see if similar things had happened. Sure enough, many residents reported that they had been frequently contacted by strangers recently. Some had even been tricked out of their last supplies. It sent a chill down my spine. Min seemed to notice my tension. She put down her chopsticks and asked, "Sis, what's wrong? Why aren't you eating?" I forced a smile, shook my head and said, "It's nothing, just spam texts. Let's eat together." That evening, online there started to appear frequently videos and posts about the increasing number of rats. Scrolling through the posts, I let out a sigh. I knew Zhou Hao and his crew's actions wouldn't do any good. Instead, it was like poking a rat's nest. All the rats came swarming out. And now the number of rats is gradually increasing. Their demand for food will also grow. Sure enough, the next second, a streamer was tackled by a rat that suddenly popped out and devoured. Over the next few days, the military channel didn't broadcast any news. Online streamers also switched back to indoor streaming. They started live streaming the rat situation outside from their homes, not daring to go out anymore. The thing about the rat virus's secondary split is, it wasn't reported on TV. It's classified information, probably to avoid causing public panic. Zhou Hao only told me alone. Many people were caught off guard and helped those who were infected, only to get infected themselves. Now, the most scarce thing is medicine, but the government hasn't issued any notice about medicine distribution. Those infected can only wait to die at home, or they undergo a personality change, turning into attackers who loot everywhere. Just these past few days, people banging on my door started with one or two. Now it's wave after wave, but they found out they can't break my door from outside, so they stopped trying and went after other residents. That night, I made clay pot chicken and fish-flavored shredded pork, and also made scrambled eggs with tomatoes and cooked century egg and lean meat congee Min, and I ate till we were full. After dinner, he squatted by the coffee table playing with a puzzle while I scrolled through online news. Probably because a lot of people aren't going out. The rats outside seem to have gotten thinner and have become even more aggressive. Many people caught footage of rats standing up pounding on glass like people. Besides that, they've learned how to knock on doors. A lot of people were drawn by the knocking, thinking it was the rescue team, but got attacked by rats when they opened the door. I frowned, feeling a sense of unease. This change is too bizarre. The rats are acting more and more like humans. This is definitely not a good sign. If they really start mimicking human actions and even know how to use sound to trick people, then things are probably worse than I imagined. I put down my phone, looked up at the tightly closed security door, and checked the lock again. After confirming there were no gaps, I finally breathed a little easier. What I do most often now is check the doors, windows, and the house for places the rats might break in. It's become my daily routine. Min seemed to sense my mood, stopped the puzzle, and looked up at me with big blinking eyes. "Sister, what's wrong?" Her voice carried a hint of unease. Clearly, the past few days had started to make her anxious about the outside. I crouched down and gently patted her head, trying to make my voice sound lighter. "Nothing. I'm just checking out of habit. Go on playing. Don't worry, with sister here, those rats can't get in." Min smiled and went back to his puzzle. I stood up and let out a sigh. Just then my phone suddenly buzzed. There was a message from Zhou Hao on my phone. "Safe." I quickly replied with the word safe. Zhou Hao immediately responded, "The operation isn't going as smoothly as expected. The rats seem to have multiplied. We have 2 months left until the 6-month mark. Not sure if we can get rid of all the rats in time, but we're working on it." I fell into deep thought. Everything I experienced in my past life, though similar to this one, wasn't exactly the same. This time I couldn't be sure if the apocalypse would follow the usual rules. I snapped out of it. I replied to Zhou Hao, "You must stay safe. Don't forget you have a sister." After a long while, a reply came through. "Don't worry, I heard the rats have mutated. They can mimic human behavior, but at least they can't talk. So as long as we don't open the door, we don't need to worry too much. If anything dangerous happens, you have to contact me." I couldn't help but smile bitterly. If there really was danger, could I even reach him? Even if I did, would she be able to get back to Min and me in an instant? I didn't want to say anything discouraging, so I just replied with a simple okay. Ending the conversation. Around 2 in the morning, a larger-scale rat infestation broke out. Shrill screams kept piercing the night's stillness. The sound was filled with despair and pain. It was blood-curdling. Then, From upstairs and downstairs, and the neighbors on both sides, came the dull thuds of heavy objects falling, along with the sound of breaking glass. My heart clenched. Instinctively, I held Minmin's hand tighter as she slept. I turned up the volume on my earphones. I didn't want her to hear those sounds. I held my breath, listening carefully to what was happening outside. The sounds were getting closer, as if they were lurking just outside the door. Suddenly, urgent knocking came at the door, accompanied by human-like wails. I quickly checked the surveillance, found part of it had been damaged by rats. Couldn't fully see what was outside. At that moment, the hallway in the footage was empty. Only dim lights flickered. The knocking continued. The next second, I saw a rat as tall as a person at the shop door. It was furiously banging on Zhou Hao's door, with such force that the surrounding walls kept shaking. Just when I thought nothing else could go wrong, 4 rats, with a whoosh, darted from my side toward Zhou Hao's place. They actually smashed through his security door. Watching the door across from me burst open, countless rats poured in. I couldn't help but gasp. I quickly moved furniture to barricade my own door. Have these rats learned to work together? Just then, my phone watch vibrated again. I looked down. It was a message from Zhou Hao. The rats have all come out tonight, and they're mimicking human behavior. Looks like they've evolved again. Are you guys okay? I wanted to tell Zhou Hao what just happened, but then I thought about him doing something even more dangerous. I forced myself to delete the typed message. Back to my side, everything seemed normal. After Zhou Hao replied with okay, he stopped messaging. Soon, the sound of rats banging on a door reached me. I quickly stepped back several paces, grabbed the watermelon knife hidden in the freezer, and aimed it at the door. Now I just hope this heavy steel structure can hold against the rats. No matter how strong they are, they can't break through steel plates, right? Sure enough, after a few hits, they stopped. The rats were scurrying around outside. It seemed they hadn't found what they were looking for, so they were running around anxiously. In no time, they all rushed into the fire escape. I let out a huge sigh of relief. I wiped the sweat from my forehead. In this life, these rats are terrifyingly strong, and they keep mutating. Is this an apocalypse difficulty upgrade? I made sure all the mice outside were gone. I moved the furniture back to block the door again. I finished taking care of everything. I collapsed on the sofa, gasping for air. The mice mutated and their numbers surged. This made the situation increasingly uncontrollable. Zhou Hao's situation also worried me deeply. He was in danger, yet he still had to protect more people. All I could do was silently pray for him to be safe. The sky gradually grew light. A new day began. I went into the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Although supplies were still sufficient, I also started to budget carefully. After all, there were 2 mouths to feed now. When Mingming woke up, I was walking out of the kitchen with a steaming bowl of congee. Sis, what's for breakfast today? She asked, rubbing her sleepy eyes. I replied with a smile. Century egg and lean pork congee. I made you a Chinese-style burger. I added beef inside. Min cheered. She jumped off the bed and ran to the dining table. Seeing her so happy, a warm feeling welled up inside me. No matter what, I had to protect this little life. After breakfast, I played some simple games with Min in the room, trying my best to make her forget the danger outside. Time passed little by little. The daytime was relatively calm, but the night was the true test. In the evening, I made dinner ahead of time. I also reinforced the doors and windows once more. Night fell. The city erupted once more. Suddenly, a faint knock on the door broke the silence. I held my breath. I tightened my grip on the watermelon knife. I slowly walked toward the door. Through the surveillance camera, I saw a blurry figure standing outside the door. It seemed to be crying softly. My heart was in my throat. I didn't know if it was a person or a mouse. At that moment, the phone watch vibrated. It was a message from Zhou Hao. Latest news. People bitten by mice turn into zombies. They attack humans. They can also pretend to be normal, but they are less aggressive. No matter who it is, never open the door. I quickly replied with an okay. I went straight back to the bedroom and held Minmin to sleep. I wouldn't care even if the sky fell. Sis, are you there? It's Qianqian. I didn't know if it was an auditory hallucination. I actually heard Zhao Qianqian's voice. The next second, I got out of bed again. In the surveillance footage, as the emergency light outside flickered, I actually saw Zhao Qianqian standing at my door. Her face was pale, her eyes bloodshot, looking very weak. My heart was full of doubt and caution. How could she suddenly appear here? I gripped the watermelon knife tightly and didn't respond immediately. The voice outside, with a sobbing tone, continued. Sis, I know you're in there. Please, open the door. Mom and Dad are dead. I'm the only one left. You must still be alive, right? Hearing this, my heart sank heavily, as if something was gripping it tight. Is Zhao Jianping dead? Zhao Qianqian's voice rang out again. Sis, I know you hate me. I was just protecting myself. I was afraid that once you came back, Mom and Dad would abandon me. That's why I fought with you. Now that Mom and Dad are dead, you're the only family I have left. Please save me. I couldn't help but frown. I didn't dare to speak. Through the monitor, I saw a rat flash past behind her. I was stunned. The rat didn't hurt her. I immediately realized she was infected. Sis, why won't you open the door? Are you going to watch me die? Her voice carried a strange anger. I tightened my grip on the watermelon knife and stared at Zhao Qianqian without blinking. Only then did I notice a thick scarf around her neck. Under the scarf, large areas of rotting flesh were hidden. Although I had a feeling, seeing it with my own eyes still sent chills down my spine. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. I knew I had to make a decision now. Zhao Qianqian outside seemed to sense something. Her voice became more pleading. Sister, I know I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. If you don't open the door, I'll die right here. Her tone went up and down, as if desperately hiding some emotion. Just then, the rat that had flashed behind it earlier reappeared. It stood quietly by Zhao Qianqian's feet, looking up at her, as if waiting for orders. This sight sent chills down my spine. They've already learned to cooperate. The next second, my last surveillance camera was torn down by the rats. I held my breath, watching her movements through the peephole. I saw her slowly raise her hand and scrape the scarf around her neck with her nail, revealing more rotten skin. The wound looked horrifying, yet no blood was flowing. Instead, it emitted a strange grayish-white sheen. Sister, you really won't help me? As soon as she said that, her body lunged forward violently. Her forehead slammed hard into the door, producing a dull thud. I was so scared I stepped back, almost falling to the ground. Then came another frenzy of banging. Zhao Qianqian seemed to have completely lost her mind, pounding the security door with all her strength, repeating over and over, Yinanan, open the door, open the door. The commotion outside grew louder, and Zhao Qianqian's voice became more shrill and frantic. I picked up a weapon from the room and walked toward the door, but then the banging suddenly stopped. I cautiously looked through the peephole again, and saw several bloody finger marks on the tiles outside. Following the direction of the blood marks, toward the ajar fire stairwell door, I saw Zhao Qianqian lying on the ground, with rats tearing the flesh from her neck, chewing it in their mouths. Zhao Qianqian's eyes were fixed in my direction, staring deathly. Suddenly, I felt something surge in my stomach, and I rushed to the bathroom to throw up. It was too late to save her now. I didn't expect infection and death to happen so fast. After throwing up, I slumped on the cold tiles of the bathroom, my body trembling uncontrollably. The image of Zhao Qianqian's desperate eyes kept flashing in my mind, along with the scene of rats gnawing at her body. I forced myself to stand up, splashed cold water on my face, trying to calm myself down. Then I picked up my phone watch, hesitated for a long time, and finally sent a message to Zhou Hao. Someone knocked on the door just now. It was an infected acquaintance. The rats and the infected seemed to be working together now. After sending the message, I tiptoed back to the bedroom door. Min was still sleeping with her headphones on, and hadn't been woken up. Looking at her innocent little face, I felt a little relieved. I can't even imagine, if I hadn't brought Min into my home that day, what would have happened to her? Time passed little by little, and the sky gradually brightened. I made a simple breakfast, woke Min up, and chatted with her, pretending to be relaxed, trying to temporarily forget the terrifying experience of last night. But deep down, I couldn't calm myself. Zhao Qianqian's death made me realize that this disaster was taking a different turn. The start is already so brutal. Is it even worth continuing? Now, it's not just the mutation of the rats, but also the infected humans have become a threat. And what's even more terrifying is that they seem to be forming some kind of eerie alliance. This undoubtedly pushes the situation to a whole new, uncontrollable level. In the evening, my phone watch suddenly vibrated. I looked down and saw it was a message from Zhou Hao. We found a way to deal with the rats. But based on what you said, the rats and infected are indeed starting to work together. Their goal is clear: to find survivors. Don't open the door, no matter what you hear. Looking at Zhou Hao's reply, I let out a heavy sigh. There's still a month until the rat plague ends. They found a way to exterminate the rats, so there shouldn't be any more surprises, right? I thought about it, hurriedly sent a message to Zhou Hao. No matter what, come find me right after the rats are cleared. Mingming misses you a lot, worries about you. He replied quickly. It seems he didn't doubt my intentions. But in the half-month after that, I never heard from Zhou Hao again. That made me a bit scared. I started checking my phone constantly, afraid of missing any message. Every time I heard a strange noise outside, I'd instinctively think it was Zhou Hao coming back. But each time, I was only disappointed. Min seemed to notice my anxiety. She didn't act out. She was even more well-behaved. She tried not to make any noise. Until this morning, air raid sirens suddenly went off outside. I rushed to the window to look. I saw countless fighter jets flying overhead. As they flew, the planes dropped something like white powder. After the powder fell to the ground, it turned into large patches of foam. When the rats were covered in that foam, they gradually lost their ability to move. That sight lifted my spirits. It seems they really found an effective way to kill the rats. But it wasn't like this in the previous life. Time quickly neared the end. News online gradually started to resume until the military channel officially announced the crisis was temporarily over. Authorities distributed basic supplies at major stations. Everyone could collect them within a limited time. In an instant, everyone poured out. Cheers filled the streets. Everyone put on protective suits and began the final cleanup of the rat plague. Due to the huge number of rats, centralized burning could cause air pollution, so they decided to bury them directly in an open field on the outskirts. The internet was flooded with news about the rat extermination. Some streamers even went to the outskirts to livestream. I watch the news scrolling by, and the anchor's feed on the computer screen. Inside, I feel no ripples. Then she tugs at my sleeve and whispers, "Sis, the rats are all gone. When is Bo coming back?" I pat its head, not knowing how to answer. I pick up my smartwatch. Zhou Hao still hasn't replied. I check the time. There are 7 days left until the end of the apocalypse. It's about time to wrap things up. Mimi, sis has to go out. Can you wait here for me to come back? And you can watch cartoons freely. Min seems to understand what I'm going to do. She says anxiously, "Sis, are you going to find bro?" Min wants to come too. I hug her and comfort her. Bro is still on a mission. He can't come back for now. Although the rats are gone, there might be some left. It's too dangerous for you to go out now. After your sis picks up supplies and medicine at the station, I'll come right back, okay? Min pouts. Though a little reluctant, she still beams at me and nods. Before leaving, I remind Min that I brought my keys, so you don't need to open the door when I get back. If anyone knocks before I'm back, pretend no one's home. Got it? Min thinks for a moment. What if bro comes back? I still shake my head. Even if bro comes back, don't leave with him. Tell him to wait at the door for me to come back together. You tell bro what I said. If the bro outside is real, he'll wait for me patiently. Got it? Min understands what I said. She nods firmly. I make sure no one's at the door. I unlock the door and leave. Now in the stairwell, only a skeleton gnawed by rats remains. A gruesome sight. I suppress my discomfort and quickly run downstairs. On the street, large amounts of white foam are being cleaned up, and the foam contains countless dead rats. According to the news, I went to the distribution center to pick up supplies. Each household can receive 2 pounds of rice, 2 pounds of millet, 2 pounds of flour per person, a box of anti-inflammatory medicine, a box of fever reducers, a bottle of alcohol, and some bandages, and 2 5-liter jugs of purified water. I also picked up Zhou Hao and Min's share. It's not much, but every little bit counts. After picking up the supplies, I asked around about Zhou Hao, but no one there knew him. It seems he's already gone, so I'll take care of Min for him, as a way to repay the favor he did for me. When no one was looking, I put everything into my storage space. Then I crossed the street and went straight to the nearest supermarket. Because the rat plague came so suddenly, many people didn't have time to stock up, so the supermarket still had plenty of vacuum-packed food. Before anyone came to take control, I sneaked in and took everything that hadn't been damaged by rats and put it all into my space. Especially the drinking water, I took all I could and left a note and cash in a hidden spot at the counter. As I left the supermarket, it started raining a mist-like drizzle. Looking at the rain falling everywhere, I couldn't help but frown. It's early again, just as I thought. I quickly went to other supermarkets and stored all the water I could buy into my space. Just as I was about to store the items, I ran into the owner, who had come back to check his inventory. I quickly stopped, pulled out some cash from my pocket. Perfect, you're back. I'll buy all this water. The owner looked at me curiously, then at the 45-liter water jugs stacked behind me. Little girl, why are you buying so much water? Aren't the rats all gone now? I laughed. I'm the property management staff for the front neighborhood, but the property bought them to give out for free to residents. The boss suddenly understood and smiled while swiping the card. Your property management is pretty good. I'll give you a 10% discount. I nodded and said nothing. I just swiped the card. Jose, with all this water, you didn't drive. How are you going to carry it back? No one's delivering right now. The boss looked at me doubtfully again. I casually pointed. Could you help me move them to the alley next door? Someone will come pick me up in a bit. The boss was pretty straightforward. He just pulled the hand truck and helped me move them out. After the boss left, I directly put the water into my space. I quickly left. Then I picked up a bike and went to a farther supermarket to keep buying bottled water. Outside, it was still drizzling like a spray. People on both sides of the street didn't seem to take the rain seriously. Instead, they continued enjoying their current freedom and liberation. I then visited several more supermarkets. Fresh vegetables were no longer available, so I bought some vitamins instead. In case the vegetables I stocked earlier run out, these can be a backup. I also went to the pharmacy and casually bought some vitamins. Since they're not controlled substances, the clerk didn't suspect anything. He just handed them to me. When I finished my rounds and started heading home, I noticed that the previously closed shops on both sides were now opening one after another and starting cleanup. I lied that I hadn't bought any water and bought water from those shops. Seeing there was nothing left to buy, I hurried home as fast as I could. When I got back to the neighborhood, the property management was working with the rescue team to repair the lines. They told me the elevator would be working by tomorrow morning. I nodded, then headed to my building. The bodies in the stairwell had been cleaned up at some point. I couldn't help but marvel at how efficient the rescue team was. As soon as I left the stairwell, I was shocked to see Zhou Hao sitting by the door. I was stunned. Zhou Hao looked up. Her face was pale. Her eyes were bloodshot. She looked exhausted. His clothes were covered in dust and stains. There were also a few bloodstains on him. When he saw me arrive, he immediately stood up and smiled bitterly. Minmin said, "Before you came back, don't open the door for anyone. I'll wait for you here." My heart was a mix of emotions, both surprised and relieved. I somehow started crying. "I was asking about you at the station. They said they didn't know you. You didn't reply to my messages either. I thought I'd say a few words. Then I choked up." Zhou Hao seemed to notice something and walked toward me. He was about to reach out, but instinctively pulled back. "Thank you for taking care of Minmin for me. It's been tough on you." I smiled bitterly, then shook my head. The two of us stood at the door staring at each other for a long time. Neither of us spoke. Suddenly I thought of something. Pointing at his house. "Your house? The rats have destroyed it. The place is probably full of viruses, but the water source should still be clean. You go back and check. Take a shower and change clothes. Then come see Minmin." Zhou Hao looked at his disheveled self. He grinned silly and scratched his head. "Okay, I'll go back and take a look." With that, he turned and headed home. Suddenly, he thought of something, turned around, and looked at me. "Do you want to take a look at this?" He actually took out a small leopard cat from his coat. I couldn't help getting excited. "Where did you get it? So cute." I was about to touch the cute little thing, but Zhou Hao quickly pulled his hand back. "Can't touch it yet. I need to wash it and disinfect it too." Zhou Hao looked at the cat in his arms with tenderness. "I picked it up on the road during a mission. Its family was eaten by rats. I saved it from the rats' mouths. It's not infected, so it's been following me." Looking at this lively little life, my mind was filled with emotions. "Then let's keep it. It's a glimmer of hope after surviving the disaster." Zhou Hao nodded, then turned and went back to his house. I quickly opened the door to share the good news with Minmin. Minmin stood excitedly by the door waiting for Zhou Hao to knock. I went into the kitchen to prepare tonight's feast. Zhou Hao came back not long after she had changed into clean clothes and looked much more energetic. Minmin rushed to her as soon as she saw her, shouting, "Brother." Zhou Hao picked up Minmin, his eyes full of tenderness. I stood to the side watching the siblings play with the kitten together and felt warm inside. For dinner, I made braised ribs, carrot chicken soup, sautéed mushrooms with greens, and spicy cabbage. Zhou Hao was amazed at the table full of dishes. "Oh my god, where did you get all this food? And fresh vegetables too?" I smiled and said they were pre-made meals. We talked a lot at the dinner table. Zhou Hao told us about his experiences outside the days of outsmarting the rats. Minmin and I listened nervously. And I told him about what happened at home, including the thing with Zhao. Qianqian. Zhou Hao frowned as he listened, was silent for a moment before speaking. "You're brave. At least much braver than I thought." I smiled and said nothing. "In my previous life, I went through everything, so in this life, I have to be brave whether I like it or not." After dinner, I took out the supplies I got from the station and the things I bought at the supermarket. Zhou Hao looked at them with surprise. You got all this? I gave an awkward smile. Because there happened to be extra spots, I picked up yours and Minmin's too. The staff handing out supplies didn't ask many questions. Why not take it, right? Zhou Hao smiled helplessly. Don't worry, it's safe now. The hospital will be back up soon. We won't need these anymore. I paused, unconsciously staring at the gloomy sky outside, and said casually, better safe than sorry. Zhou Hao didn't suspect anything. Over the next 3 days, the drizzly rain turned into a light rain. Minmin is still staying with me. Zhou Hao is organizing things at home and doing a thorough disinfection. People on the streets are also getting busy. The city seems to be gradually returning to its former vitality. Everyone forgot that this apocalypse isn't over yet. Only occasionally a streamer would mention, during a live broadcast, the so-called apocalypse. But now life is getting back on track, so no one talks about it anymore. When everyone let their guard down, I went out and bought a lot of fresh vegetables and food. Next, the most important thing is water. Although my house has its own water and electricity, it's still connected to the city water supply. Soon the water won't be usable, and there will be a constant shortage. I can't tell Zhou Hao that I'm a reincarnator, so I have to prepare supplies for him and Minmin too, just in case. Spending time with them recently, it's not like I have no feelings. At least when something happens, I'll have help nearby. More importantly, I can't buy guns, but Zhou Hao can get them easily. I need Zhou Hao's help. But on the second to last day, the light rain suddenly turned into a heavy downpour, and it never stopped. Because a lot of rat carcasses were buried underground, and with the rainwater seeping in, the city water soon tested positive for contaminants. Everyone started going out to buy lots of drinking water. I sat in the living room playing with blocks with Minmin, while keeping an eye on the news. The rescue teams are now working hard to treat the water supply, warning residents that water could be cut off at any time. Everyone needs to take this seriously. I only swallowed a small amount of water outside, but I bought 1,000 large-capacity water barrels. I started going to the water distribution points every day to fetch water. This water is specifically for flushing the toilet. I also bought a dozen water purification devices and installed them myself at the water source connections. This purified water can be used for washing up. Seeing that I've stocked up enough supplies, I stopped going outside to avoid raising suspicion by coming and going too often. But then, in the evening, the drizzle suddenly turned into a downpour. Before 9 o'clock, the military news reported that the city's water system had collapsed. They told residents not to go out or shop. Supplies would be delivered by designated personnel. At the same time, differing opinions appeared online, and everyone started getting nervous again. I ate chips while calculating the time. If the rat plague came early, then the rainstorm apocalypse would also come early, and it might be even more severe than before. When Zhou Hao came back, he was soaked through. He frowned and said, "Something's off out there. Many places are already flooded." The rescue team said the buried rat carcasses might have contaminated the soil. Now even the groundwater is undrinkable. I nodded, saying nothing. This news didn't surprise me. Looks like you were right to buy water. Did you tell anyone else about our stockpile? Zhou Hao asked. I shook my head and said nothing. Everyone's getting anxious now. If they knew we had so much clean water stored, it would just cause trouble. Zhou Hao was silent for a moment, then said quietly, I never thought you'd be more cautious than me. A professional. But you're right. The coming days might be even tougher. We need to make a plan. I stood up and walked to the window. Rain battered the glass, making a steady sound. The streetlights looked blurry and dim through the rain. Occasionally, a car drove by, splashing large sheets of water. Don't worry too much, I said softly. I have everything ready. Zhou Hao walked over to me, his gaze also fixed on the window. There was a hint of mixed emotion in his tone. Sometimes I really feel like you know better than anyone what's going to happen next. I didn't answer. I turned to look at Minmin, who was playing with a little cat in the living room. I said to Zhou Hao, you've got to trust me. From now on, don't go out. Zhou Hao sighed lightly and smiled helplessly. The team called us for an emergency assembly. I might have to leave right away. So, Minmin, Zhou Hao, I changed my usual attitude and said seriously to Zhou Hao, your own sister, you take care of her yourself. I can help you for a while. But can I help you forever? There are too many disasters and people to save. There's nothing wrong with being a little selfish sometimes. Zhou Hao didn't expect me to say that. He looked a bit embarrassed. I know I've been a burden to you, but I have my job and duties. Some things others can leave undone, but I can't not do them. I looked at Zhou Hao, still expressionless. I knew nothing I said could stop his sense of mission. Just then, the apocalypse sent another notification. A new round of the apocalypse event has started. Global flood disaster. Duration, 7 months. Zhou Hao's gaze shifted from determination to shock and disbelief, but I looked like I had expected it all along. At that moment, the heavy rain outside suddenly turned into a torrential downpour, accompanied by winds as strong as a typhoon. The moment the howling sound reached our ears, Zhou Hao's phone rang immediately. Just as Zhou Hao was about to answer the phone, I grabbed his phone directly, opened the window, and threw it out. You. Zhou Hao was dumbfounded. I turned to look at her, pointing at Min Min in the room, who didn't understand anything. You choose your sister, or choose to fight the disaster? Zhou Hao froze, unable to say anything. I'll continue. If you have something to do, I'll throw your sister out. I'm not obligated to take care of her. You make the choice. If you decide to protect your sister, then go move all your supplies to my place. Hurry up. With that, I stopped talking to him and turned to Min Min. I played with her and the little raccoon. Zhou Hao was speechless. He had no choice but to do what I said. He moved all his stuff to my place. After everything was ready, I unlocked the double security lock on the door. At the moment the lock clicked, there was a sudden frantic knocking outside. Then a woman's voice came through. I'm your downstairs neighbor. I saw you guys needing a lot of water in. Please sell me some water. My baby needs formula. I'm begging you. Zhou Hao was about to say something, but I covered his mouth and whispered, neighbor downstairs. I know there's no baby. Don't be fooled. Zhou Hao was at a loss. He had no choice but to obey. I looked through the peephole and shouted outside, we have a kid here too, and my husband just got back from the rescue team. He was bitten by a rat. He's under home quarantine, so I can't open the door. Try somewhere else. Hearing this, the woman turned pale with fear. She quickly turned to knock on Zhou Hao's door. She called out for a while, but got no answer, so she hurried down the stairs. Looks like the elevator's out again. Zhou Hao and I exchanged a look, both feeling awkward. Zhou Hao awkwardly asked, your husband just got back from the rescue team? I felt a panic. Quickly walking past him, I said casually, it was just a temporary measure. Don't take it to heart. Zhou Hao smiled and said nothing. I glared at him and said again, if you give to one person, more will come asking. Then it'll turn into a mob. So it's best to refuse everyone from the start. That's the best way. Zhou Hao snapped out of it, let out a soft sigh, just nodded at me. I figured to myself, as long as Zhou Hao could stay home steadily for 3 months, I'd tell him who I am. And about the space thing, if he can't stay, then forget it. No need to bother saving him. The next day, the rainstorm grew even heavier. Water was pouring down from the sky. Soon it flooded the neighborhood's basement. I looked at the messages from the property management in the group chat, telling everyone to go to the garage, move their cars to higher ground. The online news was back to the same urgency as during the rat plague, but now the internet signal was extremely unstable. It would freeze up while scrolling. Zhou Hao put his laptop in front of me and said, watch this. It's all internal private network. Uses satellite signal. I glanced at him, took a bite of the spicy strips in my hand, directly pulled up a page for him to see. It was a video sent by a blogger. The video was only 6 seconds. Captured himself being robbed by a group of thugs. 7 or 8 thugs trashed his house, took everything they could carry, and beat him up badly. If this happened at my place, what would Min Min and I face? I don't need to explain that to you. Zhou Hao was frowning at the video, but upon hearing my words, he immediately looked at me guiltily, didn't dare say a word. Seeing he had nothing to say, I continued scrolling through online posts. Over the next few hours, videos like that one started popping up more frequently. Someone archived and organized them, hoping that after the disaster, the authorities would take serious action. At that moment, Zhou Hao, who had been silent, slowly spoke up. The rainstorm will last 7 months. The stuff you've hoarded, I figure it'll last at most 3 months. I'll have to go out sooner or later. I laughed and said, in 3 months, the immortals will bring us food. Don't worry about the immortals. Zhou Hao couldn't help laughing. Heh. He even reached out and touched my forehead. You don't have a fever. Why are you talking crazy? I slapped his hand away. When I was dreaming, the immortals told me. Zhou Hao couldn't help laughing again, but soon he frowned. I couldn't help leaning close to his ear and whispered, I'll give you a chance to get out. What do you think? What chance? I stared at a black backpack beside the sofa and said, leave your service pistol with me. I'll let you be a hero. That won't do. Zhou Hao immediately refused sternly. Even though it's a disaster, if the gun accidentally goes off and kills someone, you'll be criminally liable. I can't give it to you. So there's no room for negotiation. I pursed my lips and shrugged helplessly. In that case, I'll say this up front. If after you leave here, Min Min and I encounter a home invasion, I'll push your sister out first. Zhou Hao was immediately speechless. You're threatening me with my sister, I sneered. I'm a petty person, and I mean what I say. I'm ruthless as hell. In a crisis, people look out for themselves. If you don't want your sister in danger, do as I say. No tricks. Zhou Hao looked at me and just smiled helplessly, without saying a word. Sure enough, that very night, a new wave of harassment emerged. Those who left home to drive had all their belongings looted. At that moment, someone posted in the community group, "Listen up, everyone. If you have supplies, each household should give out half. If you don't blame us for not being careful with our knives." Then he sent a photo. The photo had men and women, about 7 or 8 people. The men all looked strong. The women were dressed sexy. Each of them was holding a different kind of knife. The group chat exploded. Everyone quickly changed their nicknames, scared to let the others know their apartment numbers. Do you have no respect for the law? Is this a robbery? We'll call the police on you. So shameless. You guys didn't stock up on food, and you want to steal ours? Why don't you just die? I bet you're the ones behind those robberies. Everyone, screenshot the chat log. We'll send it to the cops later. Get them shot. Those people replied again. If you've got guts, I know where you live. I'm coming over now. You better open the door. Then they sent a photo of the entrance to Building 2, Unit 1. I was startled. Isn't that my unit? This is lawless. I refuse to believe no one can stop them. Zhou Hao immediately stood up and headed for the door. I calmly called out toward the bedroom. Min Min, come here. Your brother's going to take you out to play on the slide. Zhou Hao stopped in his tracks. He turned around and looked at me in surprise. The next second, Min Min rushed out of the room. She excitedly grabbed Zhou Hao. Great, you want to go play on the slide too? Come with us, sis. Sis is afraid of heights. Can't go on the slide. You go with your brother. Come back soon. With that, I continued eating my snacks, watching Zhou Hao. Stunned, Zhou Hao was speechless. Min Min started excitedly putting on her shoes, not forgetting to grab her doll. Min Min, we're not going out. Sis was just joking. When the rain stops, your brother will take you to the zoo, okay? Min Min's face fell in disappointment. She stared blankly at her one shoe already on. She couldn't help pouting, looking at Zhou Hao with an unhappy face. Zhou Hao looked at me. He was crazy with his eyes. I raised an eyebrow and smirked. I picked up my phone and started checking the group messages. I didn't want to deal with him. Zhou Hao had no choice. He had to carry Min Min back to the bedroom. He told her stories for an hour. Only then did she fall asleep. You're such a jerk. Zhou Hao stormed out of the bedroom. He pointed at my face and complained. I told her the story of Snow White 3 times. Only then was she willing to sleep. I glanced at him. I handed him the phone and said, "Take a look." Zhou Hao took the phone. His brows immediately furrowed. The number of people in the photo wasn't their actual count. There were over 20 of them. They swept through buildings in groups, looting supplies. Right now, they're on the 10th floor of this building. They'll reach my door soon. You want to take on over 20 alone? Not that I'm looking down on you. But if you lose, they'll know where I am. What if they come after me? I looked at Zhou Hao seriously. Zhou Hao was speechless. He took a deep breath. He seemed to be trying to calm himself down. So what do? We can't just wait for them to come knocking. I still have to go out and face them. His voice carried a hint of reluctance and anxiety. I shrugged. I slowly chewed on a snack. You really are all brawn and no brains. Fighting now is definitely not the answer. We need to make them back off. With that, I looked at him. I pointed at the peephole on the door. Go watch through the peephole now. When you see them show up, start coughing as loud as you can. I guarantee they won't dare knock. Zhou Hao was taken aback. He obviously hesitated about my suggestion. What's that supposed to mean? Just do what I say? If you can't, then go out and get yourself killed. And let them barge in and kill me and Min Min too. The 3 of us can go be reborn together. Zhou Hao was speechless. Though he looked annoyed, he laughed helplessly. After laughing, he stood by the peephole at the door, staring intently outside. I leisurely scrolled through a web series. Zhou Hao's voice suddenly rang out. The next second, he started coughing loudly into the peephole. Cough, 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 cough. He acted it pretty well. He even knew to start slow and get more intense. I couldn't help but laugh. Soon, Zhou Hao stopped coughing. He excitedly came over to me. They really left. Didn't even knock. Why? I laughed and said, "You forgot that woman who came to buy water earlier? She's from downstairs." Zhou Hao was confused. What do you mean? What does she have to do with it? She came to buy water before. I didn't open the door. She must have held a grudge. Now, with the robbers, she definitely wanted to set them up. She would say, I have a lot of supplies for them to loot. She just wanted them to break in, so they'd get infected. Those guys aren't stupid. Hearing this commotion in the house, they'd be scared to death. Naturally, they'd avoid trouble. Zhou Hao looked at me with admiration. You're really amazing. But how can you be sure it was the woman downstairs? I sneered, and showed him the chat history on my phone. Sure enough, the last room they visited before knocking on our door was that woman's place. Those people have now gone back to her place and are causing a scene. And they're saying in the group chat that someone in my house has the plague. Zhou Hao couldn't help but sneer too. The next month, it poured rain, with no sign of stopping. I cooked delicious food at home for Zhou Hao and Minmin every day. And Zhou Hao, when no one was outside, moved everything he could from his place to mine. He left his door open, making it look like it had been looted. He practices boxing on the balcony every day now just in case. Seeing him gradually settle down, I feel much more at ease too. With him as my bodyguard, I sleep soundly every night. Soon, the official website news went viral online. The flood had fully erupted. The low-lying parts of the city were completely submerged. The rescue team is now out of contact. The Chinese American has fallen. Someone is compiling and updating the list of fallen soldiers in real time. National mourning. In just 3 months, the government's emergency measures have reached their peak. The floodwater outside has submerged all residents below the 10th floor. Many people are camping on rooftops, waiting for rescue. Looking out the window, you can still see many bodies floating on the water. Zhou Hao is staring at the list of casualties on the official website. There are many familiar names. His fists clench tightly. His eyes are red. The fire and despair in his heart are building up little by little, but he has no way to stop the cruelty of the disaster. He also knows well that even if he had gone out back then, he would have only died out there. I soaked a bowl of spicy beef noodles and placed it beside him, hoping to distract him a bit, but Zhou Hao pushed it to me and said, "You eat." I'm not hungry. We need to conserve from now on. Can't be like before. Or we'll run out of food soon. I sighed inwardly, couldn't help but feel sorry for him. In the past few days, he noticed the food in the fridge was decreasing. He'd take a couple of bites and say he wasn't hungry, dividing the food between Minmin and me. When he's hungry, he drinks a glass of sugar water to stave off hunger. In my past life, I was betrayed and abandoned by my family. My biological parents threw me away like a worn-out shoe. They never cared whether I lived or died. Never thought in this life, Zhou Hao would care about me more than my own parents do. I pushed the instant noodles toward him again, and said softly, "You eat. I still have plenty of food. You don't need to skimp on rations." Zhou Hao didn't look at me. He replied, "Don't you think I know how much food you have? If it were just you, you'd last a long time. But now with me and Minmin, you won't get enough yourself. Stop worrying about me. Going hungry a few meals is fine. You go ahead and eat, or it'll go to waste." Hearing this, I felt a warmth in my heart, and I figured the time was right. The old immortal came last night. I suddenly spoke up. Zhou Hao immediately looked at me in disbelief. "No way." I beckoned him with my finger, then stood up and said, "Follow me." Zhou Hao was stunned, but still followed. I opened the fridge, and sure enough, it was full of fresh vegetables and fruits. I pulled open the freezer below, and it was also packed with frozen meat, fish, and shrimp. Zhou Hao's jaw dropped. He stared at the food in disbelief. This can't be right. The fridge was empty 3 days ago. Where did all this come from? The old immortal gave it. I smirked, a hint of slyness in my eyes. The old immortal said, "Eat without worry. Build up your strength to protect me and Minmin. This is his reward for you." Zhou Hao stared at me dumbfounded, speechless. I hesitated for a moment, then finally sighed, and told him about the ring space. The ring has already bonded with me, so even if he took it, he wouldn't be able to access what's inside. Only I can get the stuff. Zhou Hao suddenly understood, finally getting it all. "I was just wondering why you've been eating and drinking so much, not worried about running out of food at all. So you've got a portable space." Seeing his dumbfounded expression, I couldn't help but laugh. "No need to worry now. Eat your noodles quick, before they get cold." No sooner had I said that than Zhou Hao's stomach started growling. He pointed at the food in the fridge and shamelessly said, "With all this, who'd eat instant noodles? Let's have hot pot. I've been starving for days." Before I could say anything, Zhou Hao just took out the ingredients and started prepping. In no time, the spicy beef broth in the pot was boiling. Watching him wolf it down, I smiled with relief. At first, I was worried that when Zhou Hao heard the news, he'd immediately be on high alert, and also that he'd try to take my supplies. If it came to a fight, with his bulging biceps, he could snap my neck in one go. Turns out, I was overthinking it. Then, I told him that I was a reborn person, and that this apocalypse was different from the last one, spilling everything. Zhou Hao went from shock, bewilderment, and doubt to acceptance, belief, sympathy, and concern. That night, while eating hot pot, we talked all night long. We laid all our cards on the table. So that means, in less than 4 months, the flood will recede on its own. Then comes the great drought. Not only after the heavy rains stop, water sources will be scarce, and countless will die. A new wave of plague will come quickly. During the great drought, not only will all the water evaporate, but plants will also wither. We need to go to the countryside before the drought hits, to see if we can buy a lot of vegetable seeds, and also soil and fertilizer. I plan to grow vegetables in the space. We also need to buy some meat, fish, and shrimp. It's 3 of us now, so we need to double our stockpile, just in case. When I died, the apocalypse wasn't over. I don't know what the final outcome was, but we need to be prepared for everything. Zhou Hao looked thoughtful. Isn't your space frozen in time? How are the seeds supposed to sprout? I'm laughing now that I can plant vegetables because I unlocked a new permission. It was when I endured the heat in the apocalypse. The space unlocked a new permission. Time stops, and areas are divided. There's a small area where time doesn't stop, and can even speed up. I guess it's a defense mechanism the space prepared for me to deal with the hot apocalypse. Zhou Hao nodded right away. All right, leave these to me. Once the flood recedes, we'll set off. I suddenly had hope, but I couldn't help feeling nervous. I asked cautiously, Zhou Hao, I have to tell you, this ring, besides me, no one can use it. If you want to survive with your sister, we have to stick together. You won't? Zhou Hao stared at me, stunned. Then he gave a pale smile. You don't trust me? I'm honest and upright. I must have some credibility, right? I lowered my eyes. What happened in my past life is still vivid. This time, I reminded myself, trust no one, especially human nature. You can't trust that even more. Zhou Hao sighed deeply. He put down his bowl and chopsticks. Don't worry. I'll protect you this life. I looked at Zhou Hao and gave a smile. I nodded gently. After that, our lives became more organized. I was in charge of cooking delicious food every day. Min Min was responsible for taking care of the cats. Zhou Hao took care of security, and he would go out to throw away trash every 3 days to avoid germs. Zhou Hao seemed to have completely given up on the idea of going out to rescue people. His training intensity gradually increased. He constantly checked the official website for information and monitored the flood situation. Besides that, he also started checking maps, planning the fastest route to go to the countryside to buy supplies. As time went by, the outside world became more and more chaotic, but there were fewer and fewer messages in the group chat. Looks like most of them are dead, but in our small house, it was peaceful and quiet. The tide is out. I was cooking in the kitchen when I suddenly heard Zhou Hao shout in surprise. He hurried over to me with his notebook. Pointing at the official website, he said, the floodwaters are receding. The rescue team sent word that they're working at the front line. I looked at the time and couldn't help worrying. 2 months earlier than the last light. Looks like we need to move our plan up too. I need to go out to join the rescue effort on the front line. I looked at him without answering. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone about you. I need to prepare some things for this trip. We need transportation to get to the countryside. We can't just walk there. Trust me, I'll go with you. But we have to finish dinner before we go out. Zhang Hao stood beside me, never leaving. The flood has receded now. Soon the government will distribute relief supplies. Those people will calm down. There won't be danger for now. I know, he explained urgently, and I listened carefully, nodding in response. At dinner, only Min Min was the happiest, because we would take her out to have fun soon. After settling everything, I walked Zhou Hao to the door. Zhou Hao handed me the weapon. What? Okay, if I leave, I'll leave the gun with you. Wait for me to come back. The weapon in Majua's hand, I couldn't help but shed tears. I stuffed 2 packs of jerky into her arms. Flood control and rescue is not without danger. You must be careful. Leave Min Min to me. Rest assured, I know you're not selfish. So I prepared 2 packs of jerky for you. 1 for yourself, 1 to share with your comrades. Don't give yours to others. Come back safely. Zhou Hao's eyes also reddened. As he took the pack of jerky, he held my hand tightly. I will come back safely. With that, he turned and rushed into the stairwell. Otherwise, quickly get back inside. Lock the door tight. Over the next 2 weeks, Things went smoothly. Dayu slowly stopped after Zhou Hao left. The water level dropped day by day. Many people started sharing their survival stories online, all hoping for the end of this apocalypse. As I packed my luggage for the trip, I flipped through Zhou Hao's plan and route map. I wondered if the banking system had collapsed. Could I still withdraw money? If I had cash, it would be more convenient in the countryside. Besides some basic clothes, I also packed isolation suits and portable oxygen tanks. I wasn't sure if I could make it back before the heat apocalypse, so I had to prepare for high temperatures. Now I had one more thing to consider. If Zhou Hao could get a car, I might need to buy some supplies for it. And those seeds and soil, they'd need a temperature-controlled container. Otherwise, they couldn't withstand the heat and would soon be roasted and ruined. I had written a complete plan. Now all that was left was to wait for Zhou Hao to return. News about flood relief began flooding the internet. Some streamers even went to the front lines as field reporters. That actually let me get the latest updates. A month flew by in an instant. The floodwater on the ground had completely receded. Occasionally, I saw people picking up things in the neighborhood. "Sister, has the water gone down? When can we go out and play?" I held Minmin on the balcony by the window, looking outside. Minmin started getting excited. "Soon, once your brother comes back, we'll set off." The moment I finished speaking, the smartwatch rang. I quickly pressed the answer button. "I'll be home soon. Are you ready? Let's get going." I was thrilled. I quickly replied, "I've been ready for ages, just waiting for your call." Zhou Hao chuckled on the other end of the line. "I'll be home in half an hour." He hung up. I quickly tidied everything up and arranged them in the living room. I pulled Minmin close to me and told him earnestly, "Minmin, when we go out and meet people, if anyone asks where we're going, just say we're going to Big Sister's hometown to visit her mother. Whatever you do, don't say we're going out to have fun, okay?" Minmin, though confused, nodded firmly. Soon, someone knocked on the door. I peered through the peephole and immediately saw Zhou Hao's dirty face. I couldn't help but laugh. I opened the door, but my smile froze on my lips. He was covered in mud, so dirty, as if he'd rolled in mud. A bruise the size of a fist on his forehead was shocking. I looked at him with concern. "Your injuries?" Zhou Hao shook his head with a smile. "It's nothing, just a scratch, but I need to take a shower. We need to get a bucket and wipe down the car and disinfect it while we're at it." After coming inside, Zhou Hao went straight to the bathroom. I got him a set of clean clothes and waited for him by the door. "Did it go smoothly?" I asked curiously. Zhou Hao shouted from inside, "Not really, but it's okay." But the next second, Zhou Hao pulled open the door and appeared before me in just his underwear. As I admired his toned muscles, I noticed he was covered in scrapes and blood marks. I couldn't help but feel sorry for him again. As he put on his clothes, Zhou Hao said, "The water has receded, but I found a lot of dead things. Like you said, the epidemic is likely to break out soon. We need to leave quickly. Otherwise, once orders come down, I won't be able to leave. I'll have to go fight the epidemic." I nodded and said calmly, "In the last high-temperature period, the peak was 55 degrees, but I think this time it will probably be higher. The germs will all be burned to death." Zhou Hao sighed deeply, "But the plague before the burning is also a dangerous sign. Leaving is actually beneficial for us." After Zhou Hao finished packing, the two of us left home with Minmin. Zhou Hao and I were cleaning downstairs with a mixture of water and alcohol, that hard-won old pickup truck. Although it was in average condition, at least it could still run. Zhou Hao said while wiping, "I told the team that you still have relatives in your hometown, and we need to go rescue them quickly. They didn't suspect." "Did you talk to Minmin? Don't slip up if we run into someone we know." I responded, "Don't worry." At that moment, Minmin was as excited as a little bird, constantly circling around me, muttering about going to her sister's hometown to see grandma. I rearranged her little backpack again, stuffed in a few packs of snacks and a bottle of water, just in case. When the three of us finally got into the car, the sound of Zhou Hao starting the engine strangely made me feel much more at ease. The car slowly drove out of the neighborhood, and the outside world felt unusually strange. The streets were piled with furniture and appliances destroyed by the flood, as well as some abandoned vehicles, scattered haphazardly on the road. The air was filled with a damp, rotting smell, making one couldn't help but frown. "Shall we go straight, or buy some stuff?" Zhou Hao gripped the steering wheel, staring intently at the road ahead. "Find an outdoor store to buy some car equipment. A cooler, a thermobox, and some oxygen tanks. Also need to buy more. Also buy some heatstroke prevention and cooling car gadgets. And we need to go to the bank to see if we can withdraw some cash." Hearing this, Zhou Hao couldn't help but laugh. "You've thought it through better than I have. Looks like you've been busy at home." I gave him a speechless glance and showed him the store route map I had checked in advance. Soon, at an outdoor gear store, we bought everything we needed. Since it had been soaked in water, the owner just gave it to us. I was worried the gear wouldn't work after being waterlogged, but Zhou Hao said he was good at fixing electronics, and told me not to worry. After that, we went to the pharmacy and bought heatstroke patches, essential balm, guoxiang zhengqi water, and quick-acting heart pills. We happened upon a bank that was processing withdrawals. Zhou Hao used his special status as a rescue team member to get cash. Then we quickly headed to the countryside. After driving for about 6 hours, we arrived near a farmland in the suburbs. The floodwater hadn't completely receded yet, but some farmers had already started trying to repair their damaged fields. Zhou Hao parked the car in a hidden spot and took Minmin and me to buy seeds from the villagers. The farmers had stored the seeds in a cellar early. We bought at a high price, 20 pounds of vegetable seeds, 20 pounds of tomato seeds, 20 pounds of corn seeds. We bought 20 pounds of almost every type we could get and stored them directly into the space. At the same time, the thermometer in the car showed the current temperature was 30 degrees. Then we went to higher ground and dug up some soil, but we couldn't buy any fertilizer. After discussing, we decided to be self-sufficient. Zhou Hao even bought a small hand crank seeder. He said it would be more convenient. Just as we were loading the seeds and soil into the space, the warning sound of the apocalypse rang in our ears. A new apocalyptic disaster scenario began. Earth disaster, drought, lasting 12 months. Zhou Hao and I exchanged a glance. We quickly took Minmin and started heading back. Once in the car, the thermometer first showed 35 degrees. This time the high-temperature apocalypse came early, and the temperature rose twice as fast as last time. I remember it was a month into the apocalypse when the temperature hit 35 degrees, but now it's still climbing slowly. I just threw the thermometer out the window. If it exploded, that would be a problem. We refueled 7 times along the way. We got home when it was around 40 degrees, turned on the air conditioning, and suddenly, we were cut off from the outside. Zhou Hao looked at the messages on his phone. The teens he hauled him to stay put for now. It's too hot right now. Can't go out. The government has stopped all outdoor rescue operations. Everyone's supposed to conserve their strength. Every day after that, the temperature doubled. Minmin spent her days eating and having fun at home. Zhou Hao and I started farming in the space. The seeds we brought back. After the rain apocalypse ended, I got new permissions again. I found there's a mysterious area, but the space rules didn't tell me how to use it. But right now, I'm busy planting, so I didn't have time to figure it out. About a month later, the outside temperature shot up to 50 degrees. The city was completely paralyzed. We couldn't get any news from outside anymore. The internet was completely dead. With temperatures this high, the circuits must have melted by now. Someone posted on the military network saying, "The government is building an underground city, telling us to move north." I was cutting a watermelon. Zhou Hao brought his laptop over to show me the post. I glanced at it, speechless. At 50 degrees, you think we can actually make it to the underground city? Zhou Hao pursed his lips. I wasn't being thorough. I'm mainly worried the glass will shatter from the heat. Looks like the temperature will keep rising. How are we supposed to survive a whole year? I handed him a piece of watermelon. Thought about it. Let's wait a bit longer. Last time, it basically stabilized at 55 degrees. This time, I hope my glass can handle it. Zhou Hao handed me a piece of watermelon. He took a bite. The cool juice relaxed him a bit. He looked up at the window. The blazing sun seemed to pierce through the glass. The air conditioner at home has been struggling these past 2 days. If the temperature keeps rising, will the AC break down? He suddenly asked, his voice carrying a hint of barely noticeable anxiety. I put down the knife in my hand, wiped my hands. Considering the current situation, it should be fine for at least 6 months. But if the temperature exceeds 55 degrees, then it's hard to say. When I returned to the living room, Minmin was lying on the floor playing with the cat. The kitten lazily rolled over, as if completely uninterested in this sweltering world. "Sis, why is it so hot outside?" She looked up and asked me, her eyes full of confusion. "Because Grandpa's son is being too mischievous. He spilled all the heat onto the earth." I crouched down and patted her head, answering in as light a tone as possible. Zhou Hao looked up from his computer and chimed in, "Actually, it's not like there's no way to deal with it. We could try making some simple cooling devices. Like using the principle of evaporation to lower the indoor temperature. The concrete walls will crack." I immediately shot down his idea. "Then freeze some ice cubes," Zhou Hao said again. I took a big bite of watermelon, my mind racing. How many ice cubes would that take? Are you in a hurry to freeze them? Let's give it a try. Zhou Hao wiped his mouth. We can put the frozen ice cubes in the time-stop space to keep them. Then freeze more ice cubes in batches. I thought his idea, though time-consuming and labor-intensive, at least showed some thought. As we spoke, Zhou Hao and I got busy. First, put the meat into the space, then fill the drawers with water. But because the outside temperature was too high, it actually took about 2 days to freeze the ice cubes solid. We quickly moved the ice cubes into the space. This round trip left us tired and, if anything, hotter. But I don't know if it was an illusion. I actually felt a cold breeze in the space. Do you feel a breeze? I looked around curiously. How could there be wind here? It seems to be coming from over there. I quickly reached my hand in, and it actually felt cool. Look at those ice cubes. White mist is starting to rise from them. An invisible wind is blowing the mist out of the space. It's dissipating into the room. I see. Quick, let's move the ice cubes into that mysterious space. I followed him and started moving the rest of the ice. Sure enough, after the ice entered the space, a cool wind immediately blew out. I hurried back inside to check the thermometer. The indoor temperature dropped from 33 to 29 degrees. It was working. Zhou Hao and I froze another drawer of ice cubes and put them into the cool air space. The room temperature quickly dropped to 19 degrees. It seems that, as long as we increase the number of ice cubes, we can lower the temperature. The air conditioner can take a break now. I was really afraid it would burn out. It's okay if it burns, but I'm afraid the glass will shatter. The outside temperature is high, so the indoor temperature can't be too different. Otherwise the glass will really break. I think keeping it around 26 degrees is fine. After the outside temperature rises, we can add a little more just in case. Okay, with that, we moved the ice out a bit at a time and crushed it. Perfect for cooling our beer. Tonight, we had jellyfish salad, 3-veg stir-fry, sashimi, sushi, and braised pork claypot rice. 2 months later, the outside temperature rose to 55 degrees. It stayed there without dropping. Meanwhile, our room went from 26 to 28 degrees. Not too cool, not too hot, just right. At the same time, Zhou Hao started researching how to improve the existing equipment to prepare for the extreme cold that would follow the heat. 6 months later, someone really found the dungeon and sent a rescue signal on the official website. Armed forces set out to rescue in various cities. This time, the temperature stayed at 55 degrees. It didn't go up until just before the end of the year. The temperature suddenly dropped off a cliff. After that, it dropped about 5 degrees each day. The internet seemed to come back to life. Must be a signal from the dungeon. I calculated the time. In 7 days, we can leave the house, even earlier than the last life. Then the temperature should keep dropping by 5 degrees. When it dropped to 35 degrees, Zhou Hao left home. He started buying cold weather supplies. When he came back, he brought grim news. There was no one in sight outside. It took us about half a month to reinforce the house. We installed insulation. The temperature dropped fast. Soon it was -10 degrees. End of the world sent a prompt. A new apocalypse dungeon opens. Global disaster. Extreme cold. Duration, 6 months. I was stunned. I looked at Zhou Hao. The time got shorter. Zhou Hao thought for a moment. Probably not many people left. I breathed a sigh of relief. I drank the rib soup in big gulps. We used the principle of hot and cold air circulation. We replaced the ice with boiling water. Now the indoor temperature stays around 28 degrees. Zhou Hao also replaced the windows. With the constant temperature changes, even tempered glass can't handle that. He just put in steel plates, sealed the windows shut, leaving only a small vent for air circulation. Min and I ate hot pot and pet the cat while watching him work. After everything was ready, the temperature dropped to -30 degrees. The 3 of us curled up on the couch, drinking lamb soup and watching short dramas. 2 months later, the temperature dropped to -40 degrees. The streets outside were covered in thick frost. Many buildings had cracked from the cold and then collapsed, but they fell onto the thick snow, only kicking up a layer of white powder. Min and I were playing with building blocks in the living room. Zhou Hao was fiddling with his broken game console nearby. Suddenly, he sighed and tossed the game console straight into the trash. He turned to look at us, totally wrecked. I knew I shouldn't. I couldn't help but laugh. How about we go out for a bit? I blurted out. Zhou Hao's eyes lit up immediately. Out? It's -40 degrees, we'll freeze solid. I gave a mysterious smile, walked to the storage room, and pulled out a set of extreme cold protective gear, setting it on the floor. Wrap yourself in 5 layers of tin foil inside, plus some hand warmers. Put 2 hot water bottles on your calves. You should be fine for an hour outside. Looking at the suit, Zhou Hao was dumbfounded, a grin spreading across his face. He looked at me with surprise, as if I was his savior, but then his smile faded. Only one set. I pursed my lips. Didn't think of you when I bought it. Zhou Hao stared at the suit, lost in thought. After a long while, he looked up at me. How about we take turns going out? I couldn't help but laugh. You go by yourself. See what else you can grab out there. I'll give you the ring. You can store stuff in it. But if you can't take it, you have to come right back. And I said very seriously, don't bring anyone back. Knowing him, he'd want to rescue any survivor he saw. I didn't trust him at all. Zhou Hao agreed right away and started putting on the thick protective suit, grabbing the necessary tools and weapons. The moment he opened the door, the cold outside was beyond imagination. Even with multiple layers of thermal clothing, it was hard to withstand the biting wind. After Zhou Hao left, I quickly closed the door, then went into the kitchen to start preparing the barbecue. Minmin is holding the cat carrying a stool, standing on the balcony peering through the small vent at Zhou Hao, who is wearing a helmet. She quickly notices Zhou Hao staggering through the neighborhood. Minmin hurriedly calls me. I quickly walk to the balcony to check and immediately feel relieved. Luckily, he didn't bring anyone back. When he passes by downstairs, he gives me a peace sign in my direction. That's our signal to confirm he's himself. When Zhou Hao knocks on the door, the barbecue is just being served. I open 2 bottles of beer and make a milkshake. For Minmin. It's freezing outside. Zhou Hao, taking off his helmet, shudders violently. Even though he's wearing a cold weather suit, her hair is covered in frost. I had already set the water temperature in the bathroom for him, let it soak for a while. After he warms up, slowly, add hot water. He comes out after showering. He takes out today's loot. It's a brand new set of apocalypse gear and a desktop computer. Besides that, he also brought back a lot of canned food and hardtack. When I passed by a supermarket, I thought I heard someone's voice. Zhou Hao takes a big bite of meat, but I didn't go check. So I'm not sure if there really was someone. I had been on edge, but now I instantly relaxed. I asked curiously, why didn't you go check? Zhou Hao sighs. The apocalypse has already gone through 4 rounds. Those who can survive in this environment either have special abilities like you or are ruthless individuals. I'm afraid of showing weakness and getting targeted instead. So I hurried back. I not a bit surprised, showing a look of admiration. In this extreme environment, any oversight can lead to unforeseen consequences. Zhou Hao's caution reassures me and also strengthens our resolve to defend this shelter. After dinner, I sorted out the supplies in the space, put in the canned food and compressed biscuits Zhou Hao brought back, and the gaming equipment Zhou Hao brought back became Minmin's new favorite. He excitedly held the controller, forgetting the bitter cold outside in the virtual world. As time went on, the temperature continued to drop, reaching a low of -50 degrees. Even so, our cabin remained as warm as spring. By constantly adjusting the hot water mix, the indoor temperature stayed around 26 degrees. At that moment, Zhou Hao suddenly suggested, the extreme cold mode will end soon. Should we try to contact others or a rescue team? I thought about it, not sure what to do. I figured as long as we survive to the end, the main group will come back sooner or later. But if we expose our location, our secret will also be exposed, causing trouble, and not worth it. Zhou Hao was silent for a moment, and finally nodded in agreement with me. He picked up the remote and turned on the TV, trying to find any remaining signal, but the screen was still just static. Although the internet had partially recovered, most information was from the underground city. An announcement told all survivors to take shelter in the underground city. Suddenly, Zhou Hao's laptop let out an alarm. Zhou Hao and I were both stunned. Oh no. Zhou Hao had a bad feeling, and immediately opened the laptop. A folder was flashing on the screen. It turned out to be surveillance footage. I was taken aback. When did you install this? Zhou Hao frowned. I saw the one you installed earlier was broken, so I just put it in when I was redecorating. I never used it and forgot about it. Zhou Hao turned on the surveillance feed. There were 2 people in white hazmat suits, their faces unrecognizable, pacing in front of my door with axes. How did they find this place? I shouldn't have been exposed. My heart sank. I realized Zhou Hao might have left traces earlier when he went out. Maybe they have surveillance devices too. Turn off all the lights first. Don't let them know anyone's inside. I whispered the order. Then I carried Minmin straight to the bedroom, told him not to come out no matter what he heard. At that moment, Zhou Hao stood by the door, gun raised. I stared at the surveillance, watching their every move. I saw them leaning over the door, checking something. Soon they noticed something. They raised their axes, aiming at the door frame. I couldn't help frowning. So they really do have some special ability. Zhou Hao turned to look at me, his gaze determined. You stay inside. Don't come out. I hesitated, my eyes fixed on the monitor. Wait. They're moving. Zhou Hao was startled. He quickly walked over to join me in watching. I saw one of them crouch down. He seemed to place something on the ground. Then he banged heavily on the door twice. The other one gestured. The two moved in sequence. Clumsily they left the doorway, heading toward the stairwell. What was that? I asked Zhou Hao curiously. Zhou Hao shook his head, his brows furrowed. Might be a decoy. To confirm if those two really left, Zhou Hao and I kept watch by the window vent, observing the situation outside. My window overlooks the only exit near the gate. If they leave, we should see them. But they might have entered from another way. They must have followed my footprints. They'll definitely leave this way. Wait a little longer. Zhou Hao, slow to react, looked worried. I let out a deep breath. No matter what, at least now I know this city has other people with special abilities. Otherwise, they couldn't have survived this long. But the question is, what are those two strangers after? Supplies? Then why did they leave? Did they go back to get more help? Thinking about it, my heart jumped into my throat. I instinctively looked at the nervous Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao, if they have numbers, don't worry. Before I could finish, Zhou Hao interrupted. I'm no pushover either. Seeing her determined look, I suddenly felt a surge of safety. Soon, we actually saw those two slowly leave the neighborhood. We exchanged glances. What did they leave at the door? I asked softly. Zhou Hao shook his head, indicating he wasn't sure either. Seeing that they had indeed left the neighborhood, we went back to the living room to check the surveillance, but the cameras had blind spots, so we couldn't see what was at the door. Zhou Hao immediately went into the storage room and brought out another camera. He placed it at the vent, keeping an eye on the gate. Should we go out and take a look? I said softly to Zhou Hao, who was setting up the camera. Zhou Hao looked at me, a bit worried. I said again, now that they're gone, that thing at the door is either surveillance equipment or something like a timed bomb. Either way, it's unsafe. I think we should go check it out before they come back. Zhou Hao frowned, and finally agreed with my suggestion. He took out a bulletproof vest and helmet and put them on. I wanted him to put on the cold weather gear too, but he said it would restrict his movement. After doing some warm-up exercises in the living room, he pushed open the door lightning fast and slipped out, then slammed the door shut. I stood by the door, watching Zhou Hao through the peephole, ready to open the door for him at any moment. He didn't take long, and came back quickly. When he returned, he was holding a piece of paper. He unfolded it, and it read, "We mean no harm. We just want to trade for some first aid medicine. One of our companions is injured. If you agree, please leave the medicine at the stairwell at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. We'll exchange it for some meat and vegetables." We both breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed they meant no harm. Zhou Hao thought for a moment and said, "How about we give them some?" I hesitated, but finally nodded. Maybe Zhou Hao's presence changed me. Now knowing that there are other survivors in this city, living just like us, I couldn't help but feel excited. We prepared some anti-inflammatory medicine, alcohol, gauze, and cotton balls for external injuries. Since we didn't know what kind of injury they had, we also included suturing tools. Zhou Hao is a professional at this. He also wrote a long instruction manual, detailing various treatment methods and precautions for external injuries, and stuffed it into a plastic bag. We put it all outside together. Soon, the two figures appeared on the surveillance camera. They placed a foam box at the front door, and then clumsily left. After they left, Zhou Hao finally moved the box into the house. It was filled with fresh beef, vegetables, and fruits. For a while, after that the two of us kept up that secret contact. Sometimes they came over, sometimes Zhou Hao went out. Until that day, within a single day, the temperature went from -50 degrees to 12 degrees. The extreme cold ended overnight. But what nobody expected was that a severe typhoon hit the very next day. And then, without any warning, a magnitude 10 earthquake shook the house, and my shelter collapsed in an instant. We didn't even have time to react before we were completely buried. I only remember in the endless darkness two warm hands holding onto me tight, and soon after, I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I was in what looked like a hospital. A rescuer beside me told me this was the survivor camp. That earthquake only lasted 2 days and then stopped. The apocalypse didn't send any new notice, so the city was rebuilding and recovering. Was the apocalypse over? I frantically searched for Zhou Hao in the camp. Finally, among the rescue workers, I spotted him holding Min Min while debriefing. We saw each other from afar and both ran toward each other.